The man stood over the girl, and he really liked it. It was pouring rain outside. Euseniel asked him to wait, but the man did not stop and said that he was very glad that he found her first. Euseniel turned to Tiesbalun Naziville and asked if it was true that he had ordered the execution of the Marquis's eldest son. The man confirmed this and said that it was because he made a mistake. Euseniel didn't understand what he did, but Tesbalin said that he proposed to her. The lady was in shock. The man did not understand how he dared to propose to his Euseniel. Tess said that he really loved her. He laid her on the table, which made the lady embarrassed. Tess asked to look at him. The girl didn't understand how everything turned out like this. The man asked her again to look at him. Euseniel didn't understand when everything went wrong. An emergency patient, she was stabbed by a robber and lost a lot of blood. Everything had to be prepared for the blood transfusion. The woman asked the gentleman to save her daughter. The girl asked her mother for forgiveness for leaving her alone. Mother very beautifully, so that she does not close her eyes and comes to her senses. Also do not leave mother alone. The lady had that dream again. The girl noticed that something was wrong with her little sister. The girl thought that Euseniel was sick. This is her younger sister, Ganielle Hardland. Short, Gail. Mother and her father also began to worry, and so the master ordered the carriage to be stopped immediately. This is Duke Mylene Hardland, and Madame Duchess Ciel Euseniel said there was no need and she is fine. It was just strange to be back in the capital. After 14 years, Ganielle thought her little sister was nervous. Her father told Yule that she was still their sweet daughter, even though she tried to act like an adult. They arrived in Conga, returning to their hometown after 14 years changed little. This is Euseniel Hardland at 20 years old. She is an outsider here. It's a cliched story. After being killed by a robber in her past life, she opened her eyes in this world. For certain people, this might have been an obvious development, but not for her, because the girl didn't read novels, didn't play games, and she thought it was all a dream. She was born into the family of one of the founders of the Northern Empire, Duke Hardland. Ganielle was absolutely delighted and asked if this was really their house because it was very big. It's the family that loves her. Mother has noticed that their Gael was born after they were exiled to Varennes. This is the first time she has seen a Conga. The little girl said that it was very different from Varennes. Yule asked for forgiveness because it was because of her that everyone was sent to Varennes. They immediately began to hug her, and Mother noted that she asked not to speak like that, and her sister said that she liked it there too. At first, this world seemed alien to her, but now she has completely settled in here. The girl didn't like hugging, so she sent them away right away. The mother noticed that their daughter was very cold. The girl did not understand how she could not fall in love with such nice people. And yet, although this is not her place for her, not mom and dad, and here there is a calling for her, Euseniel said she wanted to transfer to the Contium Research Institute. Contium Research Institute. This is a government educational institution that studies magical powers. It is such a historic place that it was converted into an academy for nobles. In this place where demons and gods exist, research into magical powers may provide the key to unlocking the secrets of moving between worlds. The girl never even expected that she would be accepted immediately. Although she gave the entrance exam separately from everyone else, it seems they knew in advance that she would come. When she entered, she said she wanted to apply, but the man immediately thought that she was the Duchess of Hardland. Well, it would be nice to start learning magic soon. Suddenly, a group of girls approached her and asked if she was the Duchess of Hardland. They noticed that her family was exiled during the reign of Emperor Songs. Euseniel noted that it was a long time ago. The girls told her to be careful if it touched the ears of His Highness, the Crown Prince that is His Highness, then everything could change. The girl thought about it and realized that it seemed like their words meant that the Crybaby had ascended to the throne. She remembered how he said that he loved her. It should have been a long time ago. The girl screamed and asked if she was listening to her, because she had asked if she was a duchess and had remarked that she had no upbringing at all. It seems that this child is the Marquis's daughter. The girl screamed for her to answer. While their founding family was exiled, their power weakened while the power of the Marquis grew. She is not concerned with family power struggles and has no need to show suffering to anyone who is hostile to her. Euseniel began to smile. The girl did not understand at all why she was laughing. The girl asked her if she was sure that she was really the daughter of aristocrats. Yuseniel asked how she dared to talk like that to someone she had never met before. After this, the girl noted that her family had failed to teach her etiquette. The Marquise's daughter was simply confused. Everyone started looking at them. She started shouting that she was Lily Zuen, not just an aristocrat. Besides, she will soon become empress. Yuseniel asked again. Everyone started to worship. Yuseniel said that if she wanted, she could stop. She was not interested in it at all. Lily screamed and asked how she could even be close to His Highness the Crown Prince. She's just a fallen hardland. Suddenly, the girl heard someone standing behind her. It was the Emperor, who asked again why she was fallen and informed her that an order had been given to return the Hardland family. But it seemed that not everyone was honoring the imperial decree yet. Everyone immediately began to greet His Highness. The Emperor ordered her to be taken out immediately and executed. Yuseniel was sure that Tess was supposed to ascend to the throne, but she didn't quite understand who this person was. There are many worlds in the universe. They are all separated from each other so much that people in them do not know each other's existence. And sometimes there are people who cross the boundaries of worlds. The girl was upset because she couldn't find any information about this in the books. Instead of writing about obvious things, they would be better off teaching how to move around worlds. She was 6 years old then. A boy came up to her and said that he was here. He was very sweet and said that he missed her a lot. Yuseniel stood up and greeted His Highness the Crown Prince. The boy noticed that there was no one there, so she could call him by name and proposed to her to get married today. Then they could be together all the time. Yuseniel sighed. She had already told him that she didn't like him. Tess looked down. He asked who was her type, then. Then the memories ended. She definitely heard that Tess had ascended the throne. First Prince of the Northern Empire, Tespaloon Nazivil. He was often sick and cried. He was her childhood friend who always followed her. So even if they had not communicated since they were 14, they did not lose this connection. She was even sincerely glad that he had ascended to the throne. But who this cold guy was completely unclear. The director jumped out of the crowd and told His Majesty that it was the young student's mistake. So he asked him to have mercy this time. And also, she is the youngest daughter of Marquis Yuen. The Emperor took everything from the innocent Hardlands, so they promised to return everything. The Emperor couldn't understand how she dared to say such a thing, being a girl named Yuen. He looks like Tess, but his character couldn't have changed so much in 14 years. Besides that black hair and cold gaze were completely off-putting, blonde hair and blue eyes are signs of imperial legitimacy. She couldn't believe that people weren't upset by such a change in the Emperor's appearance. It was strange. Yuseniel asked His Highness for forgiveness and asked him to pardon Lady Suen. She noted that people had made a big mistake, but if he forgave her, people would respect him even more. If this man really is that crybaby Tess, then he listens to her, and perhaps he has completely forgotten her, because 14 years have passed. She is Yuseniel Hardland. The Emperor noted that the Duchess has a small heart, because it is noble to ask forgiveness for someone who insulted her family. The director nodded in agreement from behind. This expression on his face meant that this person was Tess. The Emperor ordered not to kill Lily Juin, but to seal her in the palace dungeon. And he would also like to see the academy, and invited the Duchess to join him. Yuseniel, of course, was not against it, and did not understand how he had changed so much. They reached the path, and the lady was very surprised, because he did not say a word to me on the way. Yuseniel does not feel the magic that could change his appearance so much. There is no paint or contact lenses in this world, so she can't believe that a person has changed like this. There may be magic she doesn't know about. Suddenly, the Emperor turned to her and immediately rushed to embrace her. The girl did not understand what was happening. The Emperor said that he had made a mistake. Perhaps she was angry that he was so late. That's why she called him His Majesty and bowed her head. Tess asked her to forgive him and immediately burst into tears. He thought she had forgotten him. There were many questions she wanted to ask when she saw him. She didn't understand why her family was exiled when she was 6, and why he never wrote to her in 14 years. But seeing him crying again when he is alone with her makes her feel weak, just like she did when she was 6 years old. She couldn't believe that this was really the child she knew. Yuseniel decided to find out what happened to him, why he changed the color of his hair eyes, and what happened in general. The guy thought she just didn't like it, but the girl said that wasn't the case. It doesn't look like magic. The Emperor said he apologized because that's her taste. Black hair and black eyes. She said that this is her type. even back then as a child. Tess said that now that he was emperor, they would no longer have to be apart, and she will not have to put up with insults as before, because everything that belongs to him also belongs to her. Everything is so strange, she feels like she's in a perfect trap. The emperor said that he loved her, and now they could be together forever. Eusenio was nicknamed the child who doesn't cry since childhood. They thought it was creepy and strange. She never cried and constantly looked at her parents. And Tess, on the contrary, was always a crybaby, a strange child who cried and felt pain every time she saw people. The emperor was worried about the crown prince, who did not have a single friend. So he arranged a meeting between the two strange children to see if they could get along. Tess said his eyes were fine. Tess followed her everywhere. Eusenio didn't just hate him. This child irritated her by showing up and leaving with all sorts of excuses. The girl was upset because she couldn't find anything again and didn't understand if there was even a way to return home. Then Tess came to her and said that he missed her very much. He thought that something was wrong and that she seemed to be ill. The girl smiled and said that we needed to exit through the door. However, sometimes his behavior made her happy. He said that if he and Eusenio got married, then he wouldn't have to go back and forth. The little girl told him that one can only get married after 20. At that time, everything in this world seemed ignorant to her, and she thought it was just a childish whim. No matter how sincere he was, she couldn't believe that he changed just because of her words. The girl thought that it was simply impossible. Tess asked her what it was, and thought that she was thinking about something else when she stood in front of him. He was upset. Suddenly, Eusenio pushed him away and shouted at him to stop. She told him to calm down because she wouldn't let him go any further. The gentleman noticed that she was still cold. Eusenio asked if it was true that he had changed his appearance because of her. He confirmed this and said that he also changed the imperial costume to suit her taste. The girl said that she likes people who look good in black. After that, the guy asked how she likes it now. Eusenio has no idea how it all turned out this way, or what the hell is going on. Tess told her that if she wanted, he could change everything to black, anything she wanted. The girl asked him to tell her how he changed his appearance. In response to this, the gentleman remained silent, so the lady once again asked him to answer her. He was surprised that she was interested and said that he would tell her everything if Eusenio married him. He always behaved the way he wanted, but she doesn't understand how she can avoid it. Her family was exiled to Varin. This may have affected his appearance. Eusenio said she had had enough and was going home. The emperor asked if he could go too, since he had often gone there before. Eusenio said that he could not. He has a gift for her, but the lady said that she will do without it. Tess asked if she would say that, even if it was a pass to visit the Imperial Library. Tess has expanded their library, and she will find more books on magic there than in Consume. She can take whatever she wants, except for the forbidden areas. All this is because she liked to read books. The lady turned away again, because he began to touch her again. Tess promised to wait for her at the palace, but she must hurry, because his patience was beginning to run out. After that, he disappeared, and the lady realized that it seemed to be teleportation magic. He can use your magic! That's why the girl was so shocked. Eusenio was practicing fencing, and her opponent asked them to take a break. Her opponent was her childhood friend, Ethiel Bonaparte. He noticed that the lady was overdoing it today. Eusenio noted that he was still weak, so he seemed to be. The Lord thought that she was probably the only one who called the Imperial Knights weak. He believed that she was too strong due to her elven blood. She had not yet returned to the capital, but had already entered Consume. He's only been practicing for a few days since he was founded. Eusenio assumed he wrote to her because he was so busy with the knights. Edel began to say that he sent her letters all the time, and he tried hard to write them. Eusenio noted that he had visited the Imperial Palace while she was in Varennes, and so she wants to know if he thinks Tess has changed. The guy noticed that His Majesty was always with them, and it seemed that he had not changed. From that day on, she asked her father and everyone around her about Tess, but they all answered the same way. They didn't know that his appearance had changed. The guy also added that he was a little scared after His Highness ascended the throne. A bloody wind arose. That's why Atil asked his friend not to interfere in this. In fact, she also has a feeling that I shouldn't get involved in this. But she can't miss the chance to learn more about magic, so she came. The emperor was happy because finally she was here. He had been waiting for her, his Eusenio. The gentleman asked if they had heard that he was the youngest daughter of the Marquis of Suen. The man heard that it was because of the Duchess of Hardland and the fact that her family had returned to the capital. Everyone was interested in what would happen if she really became empress. Everything was as Eusenial expected. Rumors began to spread. Your empire is divided into two branches. The family of the founding duke on the emperor's side, and the marquise from the empress's side. The empress was the emperor's favorite, and only wife, a descendant of the marquise's family, so it was planned to appoint the marquise's daughter as the crown princess. However, this rule was abolished because Tess was obsessed with Duchess Euseniel. Because of this, her family was kept under strict control, preparing her for the status of empress. And as soon as she returned, rumors began to spread that she was going to the imperial palace and that she did not want to hurt her family anymore. Times were hard enough. They were already exiled for 14 years because of her. 14 years ago, the emperor's throne room. He was grateful to the girl for this visit. Eusenial noticed that His Majesty was in some strange state. The emperor said that he called her because he wanted to ask her something, so he asked her to answer honestly. He needs to know if she likes the color black, and if her ideal type is someone with black hair and eyes. The girl confirmed this, which was followed by laughter from the emperor. The mother covered her daughter, and the emperor shouted that his son had even renounced religion, and all he was doing was calling for their daughter. Because of this dishonest child, this happened to his son. Mother asked the emperor of the Northern Empire to speak correctly. Elves are a symbol of purity and innocence, and it goes without saying that her daughter is tainted with elven blood. Whatever happened to his son, it was his choice, so he shouldn't take his anger out on her daughter. The emperor ordered that this child be sent to Varennes and locked up for life. The parents said that they would never leave her alone, and the duke said that he would rather send his whole family away. The emperor noted that it was even better this way. The biggest problem was the Hardland family. Eusenial never thought she would ever return here. The atmosphere here is still so unfriendly. The girl was simply delighted because the library was much larger than the previous one. The man asked who was there since entry was prohibited to anyone except members of the imperial family. This man was delighted when he saw Eusenial in front of him. The lady noted that 14 years had passed, and he was still the same. Although His Majesty said that she would come, he had not seen his lady for so long. The man said that it was as soon as he was crowned that the emperor ordered her to stock up on all the books she had been interested in when she was young, and to keep them. Eusenial realized that he had really been thinking about her all this time. Here in the Book of the Forbidden Area, the same man asked to call him if he needed anything. Eusenial was very grateful to him. She read the books, Tess's changed appearance, and those words of the emperor when he banished them to Varennes. Even if he didn't forget her, she will ascend the throne. He left them in exile for another year. She continues to burn with a sense of resentment from everything. It wasn't that she hated her life in Varennes. It was a dead land where the snow didn't melt for a year. She met a good fencing teacher and did not neglect training. He was far from the control of the empire or the gossip of the nobility. Many of their families were treated differently there. It was difficult to find a book about magic, which would describe the way to return home, and she knows that it is not his fault. But suddenly, the emperor came up to her and greeted her. She can't treat him like nothing happened. Eusenial was irritated when she saw him, because she had deliberately not written her name on the visitor list. She also snuck in here secretly, so she doesn't understand how he knew she was here. Eusenial didn't understand why he continued to be nearby. The guy said that it was all because of this, that he loved her. So the girl asked him to give her an answer. She wants to know why no one knows about the changes. As if nothing happened. Tess didn't quite understand what she was talking about and asked if she was really interested in him. So he's glad. How he noticed that it was very nice. The lady grabbed him and said she had had enough of this. She had said she would not allow this to happen again. After a short silence, the emperor laughed and remarked that she was so strong. Eusenial told him to stop acting like that because she had told him that before. Tess pulled her close and told her he liked her right then and there. Eusenial said again that she had had enough of this and pushed the gentleman away. The emperor noticed that she was rather rude and pushed him away forcefully. Eusenial told him to be grateful that she had not hit him. Tess noted that he had heard that she had a good fencing teacher in Varennes, and the girl became stronger than when they were children. He knows about the teacher too. Her childhood friend, a weak child and generally a crybaby, Not only his appearance has changed, he seems to be different. The girl did not understand what strange feeling was enveloping her. She was also anxious, but she still caught herself thinking that he was attracting her gaze. It's only because she likes this image, to be honest. It's beautiful. The emperor chuckled because she really liked black, and he was very happy for trying to catch her eye. He decided that this meant that it was worth it, so these words made the lady think. She asked again how he changed his eye color and hair color and why people don't notice these changes. She asked him not to avoid answering this time. The gentleman fell silent, after which he said that he was connected with the imperial palace. The first emperor united the northern lands and founded an empire. Despite the constant attention of neighboring strange people against the rebellion from the southern empire, as well as conflicts with the nobles, everything remained unchanged. So what if they betrayed him? He linked himself to the imperial palace to see everything that happens in the castle. Since then, the oath continues, and each subsequent emperor inherits this ability. In other words, it was his territory. Yusiniel noted that she hadn't even thought about it that way. This is a secret known only to the successor, and he is also stronger than his predecessors. If a person has ever been to the castle, he has the ability to control its memories. Yusiniel noted that it made sense, but he said it so casually. Every aristocrat was present at his coronation, so it's no wonder no one notices a change in him. The emperor noted that she was a quick learner, as always, but no matter how strong the emperor's magic was, it is a common practice for power to be passed down from generation to generation after the death of the ruler, unless some powerful force is involved. As the girl thought she should learn more about magic, Yusiniel asked why her memory was not affected. The emperor told her that it was all because of this that elven blood flowed through her. The child of light, like elves and fairies, is immune to the powers of the royal family. Yusiniel decided to ask why he was so calm then, but the emperor did not immediately understand what she was talking about. She could tell everyone that the emperor had deceived them, and she wondered what would happen if she did so. Yusiniel just wants to anger him, but if she doesn't succeed in even this small revenge, she will consider their 14 years of exile unfair. Tess said that Yusiniel wouldn't do that to him, because she was the only one who had always been on his side. He only has her. Indeed, Yusiniel has always been on his side. But she asked if he thought she would be okay with seeing this change in him. She had had enough today, so she decided to leave, but the emperor tried to stop her. She did say that she liked this image, so he once again asks her for forgiveness. He shouted that if this continued, he would execute Lily Swen. Yusiniel told him what he could do, how he was doing. Tess asked if she really hated him, and that changed him. The girl said that they could see each other next time, and called him emperor. It's not that she doesn't like how he's changed, she just needs time to think about it. It was better for him to stay away from her for now. But in the meantime, the emperor began to cry again. He would go mad without her. Yusiniel wondered what was going on there. What did his words mean that she also hated the changed him? Maybe someone else hurt him. He also said that she was the only one who was always on his side, and that was really true. There was a time when she thought the same. He offered to go with her. You are very glad that they will attend magic classes together. Yusiniel noted that he wanted to go with the maid. Still, it was a good opportunity to take lessons from the archmage. Tess smiled and said that if she liked Yusiniel, then he liked her too. As much as he trusted her, she trusted him too. 14 years ago, they came to the archmage, and the girl introduced herself. It was fair for her to meet him. This man is considered the pinnacle of the entire magical world, an archmage. She was very interested to know if the archmage knew how to cross the border of worlds. Perhaps he will notice that she is not from here, that she is from another world. The archmage noted that as His Majesty had said, she was a very polite young lady. The boy confirmed this once again. It didn't happen. Tess said his friend was very smart. She was the most beautiful, the sweetest. The boy also said that he was going to marry her. He said this in front of the servants on the Empress's side. Yusiniel whispered to him that she had asked him not to say that. The boy did not understand why, and who was listening to them. After which he looked angrily at the servants. So after that, they said they were leaving. The boy said they could now look at his book together. The archmage suggested that they begin their studies. When they think of magic, they usually think of potions or spells. However, the source of all magic is mana. Mana is the basic energy that sustains life in a person. If they understand this, then they can begin the real work. Yusiniel said she had a question. She wanted to know if he knew the story of the Sky Fairy and the woodcutter from Mount Guanasana. The prince noted that he had seen her in the palace library. The Sky Fairy and the woodcutter is the story of the atom, how the woodcutter going down to the pond stole the clothes of the Sky Fairy. And she, unable to return to heaven, fell in love with him, but soon returned home anyway. The stories are often based on real events that happen. The heavens where the Sky Fairies live and the land where the woodcutter lived are different worlds. So she wonders if the Sky Fairy also passed into another world, and how she was reborn in this one. Eugenial said that what she really wants to know is if there is a way to travel between worlds. I noticed that this was an interesting question, so the girl immediately became happy. The essence of the questions is in the magical power, and the mountain has been known for its magical places from generation to generation. If you use the magic of this mountain, you can open a door to another world. It is not impossible. The girl was happy because finally she had the opportunity to return. Archmage G added that unfortunately he did not know how to open this door. Therefore, the girl immediately calmed down and did not understand why this was so. Movement between worlds was possible only for some that she was a heavenly fairy, no matter how hard a person tried. He was not given to know this. Eugenial thought that this time she had definitely found a way to return. The Archmage said that the mountain had always been full of mysteries. Perhaps there would be a way to contact other worlds. It was a hopeless explanation. Non-human beings, such as ancient dragons or deities, may know the way. Tess wondered about the demons. He wondered if they might know about it. The Archmage asked His Highness what demon meant, since such ominous words could not be spoken. Demons are evil creatures that seduce people with sweet words. In the evening, the boy noticed that he slept very well in Eugenial's room. The girl got angry because he started following her even to the carriage, and said that he also wanted to go to her house and sleep with her. Eugenial asked him what would happen if His Highness scolded her for this. The boy said that it was better for her to sleep in the palace. Eugenial said that she couldn't even breathe normally there, so she didn't understand how she could sleep there. Tess noted that it was all because she was very cute, and the palace was all black, and she was the only one who was so fair. So he once again suggested that they get married as soon as possible. At the same time, he kissed her on the cheek. Eugenial became very angry, and the boy hid under the blanket and wished her good night. Sometimes it irritated her that he acted like a crybaby, but she liked his tenderness. The boy told her not to worry because he would do whatever she wanted. Eugenial noted that he didn't even know what she wanted, but in any case, she was very grateful to him. Eugenial found herself in that dream again, where she was in the hospital, and the doctors were screaming that she had been wounded by robbers and was bleeding. She again saw her mother lying over her and asking for forgiveness for leaving first. She wanted to tell her mother that she felt so strange, as if her body had been torn apart. She is in so much pain that it cannot be described in words, so she asks her mother for help. After which she woke up, she was awakened by a prince who looked strange. She was surprised that he was near her, after which the girl asked him to move away a little. Eugenial said that he doesn't even try to listen to her. Tess said he tried to wake her up because he thought she was having a nightmare. After that, the boy asked again what she was doing. He was serious. She kept repeating that it hurt. Yes, she is in pain. The pain from that knife stab still hasn't gone away. After her reincarnation, she constantly has dreams about her past life. The moment when she is wounded by the robber, the moment of death in the hospital, all this is repeated over and over again. It was as if she was a stranger in this world, as if everything was pushing her to return home, as if she were cursed. Tess heard this without asking what she said. The girl said that it was nothing, and it was just some nonsense. He really just wanted to wake her up. Of course he wanted to kiss her, but he refrained. Eugenial called him to breakfast. At breakfast, her mother met her and picked her up, so the girl noticed that her mother was very strong again today. Mother noted that she was an elf, after which she asked if their daughter had slept well. She is still little, so she should sleep with them. Her father came up from behind and noted that it would be better this way because the crown prince was here. Seal agreed that he was right, the little royal family, or rather the little crown prince. The boy greeted the duchess, and they began to eat. Tess noticed that he had no strength in his arms today. He sighed and said that his fingers hurt a lot. Eugenial gave him her food and asked him to give her his hand. She thought he had hurt himself again. The boy became embarrassed. Her mother noticed that Yuel seemed to have a weakness for the crown prince. The baby turned to her and said that it wasn't true, and she just did it because he said it hurt. Their family in this world is quite harmonious and happy, not at all like her previous life. The father abandoned them and moved to another house, and Mom took care of them herself. Well, Mom, already weak in health, got worse because of Dad's affair. But she told her daughter that everything was fine and that her mother would take care of her instead of her father. Mother always gave her love, but she lived with the word pain in her mouth. Maybe that's why when she looks at Tess and cares about him, I think she cares about her mother. They both cry a lot and are very clumsy. They even have similar personalities. Even if it hurt, she always smiled. She became very sad because she remembered her mother. The girl made sure that after her death, her mother would still receive treatment. Not that she thought anything bad. And she didn't love her parents here. She will always be grateful to them for the love they gave her. But she constantly remembers her mother screaming at her not to leave her alone. Unlike them, she had only one mother. She needs to return to her world, and then all these nightmares and pain from the wound will go away. But she constantly remembered the Archmage's words, that perhaps in the mountain there would be a way to contact other worlds. She turned to her mother and said that she had heard that elves, unlike other people, were closer to the world of fairies. And then she believed that perhaps she knew how to move between worlds. She needs to go back. No, she must go back. The 100th day before the Hardland family is exiled from the capital, Mother asked again and asked why she was thinking about this. It would be nice to be honest and ask for help, but these people loved her with all their hearts, like their own daughter. She can't say that all this time she was not from here. Batman. She said that since she took lessons from the Archmage, there were some things that remained unclear to her. Since she is the only one in the capital, she decided that she knows the answer. Mother asked her husband if he heard it. She felt so good because Yule acknowledged her. Yuseniel apologized in her head for deceiving them. Mother said that unfortunately, she could not tell her anything about other worlds. The little girl started asking why this was so. Because she was from the world of fairies. It was a secret. Unlike the fairies who were born there and live there, the elves live in the human world, and due to restrictions, they are forbidden to tell any truth. It's a kind of contract, an agreement that maintains security and world order. The girl realized that this was like a contract with a god, and asked which deity did this, because she had heard that 2 gods ruled the continent. Her mother doesn't know this, which upsets the girl because it's a total failure. Her mother was her last hope. The prince turned to Yuseniel and remarked that it would be better to calm down a little. Yuseniel was busy and upset because she had seen the book before, and now it was gone. But suddenly she found it and saw that in the beginning there was the god of light, Lux, and the devil, the god of darkness. Lux built the continent and taught people to protect themselves from the temptations of the devil. When after a time the god disappeared, the continent was divided into 2 parts, those who believed in God and those who did not. This led to repeated wars. Yuseniel was upset that this whole story was about a god. Further on, it is said that the Northern Empire, relegated to the Southern Empire after the appearance of the first emperor, began to win. Unlike the Southern Empire, the Northern one does not have a state religion. Therefore, theological studies are absent here. Recently, most of the Northern Empire began to believe in Lux. She thought that there would be more information. Things weren't going as she thought. Tess lay down with her and said that something was wrong with her today. Yuseniel asked the boy if he was going back to the palace. The boy said that he would stay with her for a while and then go. Yuseniel was surprised that he liked her so much. Tess said that he really liked her, so he suggests that they live together. Father said that he can marry a good man. Yuseniel asked him never to speak like that in front of others, and the boy didn't understand why. This is so, because his mother constantly monitors this. She even holds regular meetings of the children in order to connect her son with the Marquis's daughter. She couldn't believe that this fool didn't notice it, or simply didn't want to notice it. The girl told him that marriage usually takes place after coming of age. Tess asked again whether it occurs after 20. Besides, her taste is different. Tess was upset and said that he knows that someone who doesn't cry can use magic and isn't arrogant. With hair and eyes as black as the night sky, Yuseniel noticed that everything was exactly like that. So she asks him not to say that Tess said that he had blonde hair and blue eyes. So he started crying. And he thought that perhaps she would change her taste for him. Yuseniel turned to him and said that when he cried, he had already made a mistake. and also added that she will not be able to change her taste. Tess was very upset because she still cannot love him. He can, after all, allow her to take the books and classes she likes, the jewelry and dresses she wants. Eusenio told him again that she had already told him that it was not about money. She can't change her preferences by force, so she called him to follow her because she needs to return to the imperial palace. The boy said something, but the girl didn't hear it and asked again. He doesn't want to go back. He doesn't want to be far from her, so he said he would go if she took his hand. Eusenio is always kind to him, but that's not enough. He wants her to care for him and love him, so the boy constantly thought about how he could do that. Tess was absolutely delighted when she watched Eusenio practice fencing. He said she was really cool, Count Guard, former commander of the Imperial Knights, currently a knight accompanying the Crown Prince. He suggested that lady take a break. She has a good stance, so he assumes that she has already practiced fencing. Behind them, they noticed a boy who approached Eusenio and said that she hadn't come to fencing lessons, so he decided to go get her. This is Ethel Bonaparte, 8 years old. He was surprised that Count Guard was here. Eusenio apologized and said that she forgot to say that she would not come. He felt like she would still beat him again in sparring later, and he believed that it was all because of the extra training with Count Guard. Eusenio said that he was simply weaker than her. The Crown Prince, meanwhile, was very upset. Edel wanted to greet the Crown Prince, but he pounced on him and asked who allowed him to come here. And he shouted for the guy to get out quickly. Today she promised to spend time with him. The Count told His Highness that he might suffer again. The boy told the Lord that he wanted him to throw this man out right now. Eusenio thought she had explained everything to Tess that day, but he stood his ground. The girl approached her friend and asked if he was okay. He said that he was fine. Tess turned to the girl and said that he was in pain too, and more pain than this guy. With the appearance of Etil, his sick addiction only intensified, and he tried to keep everyone away from her. At events, he said that the girl should play with him and no one else. Because of this, she and her family became victims of gossip. There was constant talk of them using their daughter to steal the position of Crown Princess. Even His Majesty is concerned about the Hardland family. It seems His Highness has been brainwashed. However, she still didn't take Tess's affection seriously. It was just a child's possessive desire to keep his first friend. She told him not to worry, because no matter who she met, he would always be her friend. This is how she always calmed him down, and the boy was very grateful to her. He really likes her, and soon he entered a period of early growth. Seal noticed that she hadn't seen the Crown Prince in a while. Her husband said the boy had said he was having trouble coming in now because of growing pains. Mother was upset that he was in so much pain. After all, if he refused to visit even Yuil, then he must be in a lot of pain. The mother thought that her daughter was sad because they didn't see each other. Eusenio noted that this was not the case. She was sad because she could not go to magic classes. Mother said that in that case, she could improve her fencing skills with Etil. Mother also noted that it would be good if they got engaged later. The Duke asked the dinner what she was saying. Ciel said that if they got engaged, their daughter would be able to distance herself from the Crown Prince naturally. He thought it was because of rumors, but his wife said she didn't care. She just feels that Eusenio shouldn't be around the Crown Prince. It's elven intuition. Eusenio noticed that she hadn't been particularly fond of Tess lately. Getting engaged is not such a bad choice to solve these problems. If she has a fiancé, the Crown Prince will have no choice but to watch his behavior, and the increased attention to their family will also go away. And this is a completely reasonable choice. But the baby refused. Eusenio said that she has no intention of getting close to anyone. She is the one who will return to her home one day. Therefore, she should not be in a deep relationship with anyone. The girl said that they should not worry about her relationship with the Crown Prince. He is like a younger brother to her, and she felt awkward about what she said to her mother. When she met Tess later, she noticed such changes in him. The guy noted that they had not seen each other for a long time. Eusenio was shocked at how much he had grown and bowed her head to him, but he got angry about it. You said that she shouldn't do it because they were alone here. She should not bow and pay her respects to him. If she treats him like a stranger, his heart will be broken. After that, the boy noticed that she blushed. Eusenio turned away and said that it was noisy. It's all because she feels bad every time she visits the palace, and she's tired of paying attention to etiquette, human glances, and close supervision. Tess told her not to worry about it. She didn't have to bow to him, and she could feel free throughout the empire. He is going to change everything. So the girl asked him how he wanted to change the law, but the boy said it was a secret. She just had to wait a little. Eusennial didn't remember exactly what the crown prince's face looked like then, but she felt the elven intuition for the first time. Something was wrong today. He was in the imperial palace all the time, and on the border, a monster appeared, driving the entire empire crazy. So that ominous day was quickly forgotten, time passed, and Tessa's 6th birthday arrived day 35, before the Hardland family was exiled from the capital. There were so many people gathered in the banquet hall. This was the first official reception since the crown prince's recovery. All nobles from the rank of viscount and above are invited. Each will try to make a fine impression on the imperial family. Duke Hardland came with his wife and daughter. The little girl heard it said that the dress the lady was wearing was a gift from the emperor himself, and there were rumors that the prince was getting better, only thanks to her. Eusennial wondered if they knew she could hear everything. Today's event was a good chance to curry favor with the Hardlands as well. Eusennial already wants to go home. Lady Lily Suen is here too. Rumor has it that she and the lady are vying to become His Highness's bride. They were still just kids, so many thought it was some kind of horror. The girl was shocked that they weren't tired of gossiping yet. They ordered everyone to be quiet because the emperor came out with the empress. Also with them was the crown prince. Everyone began to greet His Highness, and he announced that they could raise their heads. The emperor kissed his wife and remarked that it was a very delightful celebration and that his wife had done a wonderful job. His Highness is very sensitive to his wife. If, of course, you forget about the rest. Today is the first time she's seen Tess since that day in the library. His face is so pale, he looks like he's still sick, and now their eyes met, so the boy immediately became happy and wanted to run to her. Mother restrained him and asked the crown prince to behave with dignity. Everyone was looking at him. Tess said he didn't care and wanted to talk to Eusennial. Everyone was shocked with you that he wanted to finish the conversation with her again, and noticed that he didn't even try to hide the fact that she was his favorite. Surely the Hardlands, no less than others, want to become related to the imperial family. They didn't think they were that evil, so they were disappointed. Everyone was wondering how he managed to attract the attention of the crown prince. All of His Majesty's close associates had gathered here, and this gossip had already cast a shadow on her family. Ciel told her daughter not to pay attention to it. Eusennial doesn't want their reputation to suffer even more. Eusennial turned to His Highness and apologized for being late. She asked permission to congratulate him on his birthday. The boy did not understand what all these formalities were for. Eusennial knows that Tessa doesn't like this kind of treatment. He asked why she speaks to him like that, but still, the girl had to draw a clear line between them. The girl was delighted. Once again, all the guests finally switched to the banquet. It was very good that the emperor intervened and said that she had very wonderful manners, and remarked that she was simply a model of politeness. They were eager to visit and were waiting, so this exchange of pleasantries can end here. They decided to start celebrating. From now on, Tess would also keep up appearances. They would have to keep their distance at events like this, but she didn't think it would upset him so much. Most likely he feels abandoned. Suddenly someone approached her. It was Edel. The boy asked her why she was standing here alone, after which she noticed that the guys wanted to talk to her, so he called her to follow him. But she doesn't want to talk to anyone, so she stands to the side so he can talk to them himself. The boy noted that he couldn't allow her to be left here alone. True friends don't do that, Eusennial asked, so Leon traded their joint fencing lessons for a meeting with the Knights of the Imperial Guard. Edel noted that she knew that he dreamed of taking the place of captain of the Imperial Guard, so he could not miss such a chance. There would not be a second such case. Unlike other Knights warriors from the Imperial Guard, obey the Emperor himself. Those wishing to join their ranks undergo a rigorous selection process. Eusennial would be interested in how he managed to get the invitation letter. It's all thanks to His Highness. The girl couldn't believe it because it was the crown prince who did all this. Edel noted that he heard that he himself asked his father for a favor, and he thinks he has recognized that the guy is incredibly talented, but Tess doesn't like Ethel, so the girl wonders why he would help him. It seems that he is still not really recovered. He took some imported mixture, but even that did not help him. The guy told her to be quiet because she started talking about it very loudly. She was shocked that it was so bad. The little girl said that she thought it was all because of her growth. Ethel doesn't know the details, but the crown prince was watching all of this. The girl clearly remembers that day. Suddenly, a terrible storm broke out outside the palace. A monstrous thunderstorm knocked out the windows, and Tess lost consciousness. The emperor was horrified when he saw what had happened to his son and ordered the court physician to be called quickly. Eusennial stood there. I didn't understand what was happening. Everyone was panicking, and from this, His Highness fainted. The frightened aristocrats rushed in panic in all directions and thought that it was a demon, so they decided to flee. Her family was no exception, so her father grabbed the girl in his arms and said that it was time for them to leave too. She tried to say something, but father said that the doctor had arrived, so His Highness would be fine. They would definitely see each other later. But Dad was wrong. That was the last time she saw the Tess she knew. And then they were exiled. And 14 years later, he appeared before her as a completely different person. Adel asked what his friend was thinking about, and Eusenniel simply said that she was reminiscing about the past. She was just trying to figure out how she got to this point in her life. She is now 20 years old. Ethel asked what exactly she remembered. He was interested, but Lady Oren pushed him. He asked why she did it. The lady replied that he was too curious, or maybe the soldier is not familiar with feelings. Edel added that it was very verbal, considering that she herself asked them to have tea. The lady said that Eusennial was actually her friend. The guy said that he knew her much better. Eusennial was shocked with you that they managed to quarrel even in her presence. Ethel noted that this somehow didn't fit, so he was interested in how they became friends with Lady Oren. They had been at odds for a long time because of this whole thing with the prince. When their family was sent into exile, Oren began writing her a letter saying that she would like to continue their correspondence if she did not mind. Eusennial believes that this is how their friendship began. Thanks to her, she learned about everything that was happening in the capital, and her friend didn't forget about her, unlike some. The guy was simply horrified by such words. She didn't understand how this was possible, because he wrote to her every free minute, and he swears by it. She doesn't even know how he worried when she suddenly stopped answering him. He was crushed when he found out that she had been corresponding with Lady Oren all this time. A little later, after Eusennial stopped writing to Etel Oren, said that she too was corresponding with Lady Euls. The boy didn't understand why she would call her that. Since then, whenever he wanted to know how she was doing, he had to ask Aurine, and Eusennial couldn't imagine how awkward that was. After this, the lady wondered where all his letters had gone. Aurine also noted that they had never been enemies with Eusenniel. Neither of them was chasing the title of crown princess, and besides, her heart was already taken. She never thought that her little sister would notice the place. People also apologized for what happened at the academy, because she heard that Lily had behaved disgustingly, so she asks permission to apologize for her. Eusennial said that everything was fine, and it wasn't her fault. The girl sighed and said that her dad doted on Lily because she was the youngest, but she didn't think that he spoiled her so much. And to be honest, he and his younger brother don't communicate with her. I remember her younger brother was so shy that the blush almost never left his face. However, Lily was locked in an underground dungeon, and her father was ready to beg on his knees to get her out. Eusennial was surprised by this and said that she did not have such power. The lady noted that perhaps the emperor would listen to her. It's been 14 years since they last met, so he highly doubts it. The girl was surprised by this and noted that they were very close in childhood, and everyone thinks that they are still on good terms. She thinks that Lily will learn from this incident. Eusennial forgave her because she is Aurine's sister, but next time she won't be so forgiving. Oren noted that there was no problem, and she could do as she felt necessary. After all, she should at least learn something. When the girl sent the guests away, she unexpectedly appeared here again. Her parents planted this tree in honor of her birth, and she and Tess often played under it when they were little. She thought that this tree would die because after their expulsion, there was no one to take care of it since it grew very tall, after which the emperor appeared near her again. She heard this and said that she had already told him to stay away from her. Tess said he had no choice. She didn't come to him, and he had to look for her himself. Eusennial said that she would ask him not to come to their estate anymore. The guy did not understand why, because he had been here often before. He couldn't believe that she actually hated him. He started crying again. Tess continued to ask for forgiveness, and said that he was even ready to pardon Lily if she wished it. Only he asks her not to do that to him. Eusennial said that she does not hate him at all, but now that he has inherited the throne, they can no longer be friends like before. Euseniel doesn't want any nasty rumors to spread about her family again. The guy told her not to worry because no one would dare to utter a word he gave his word for it. Tess had promised that he would give her everything she wanted. He speaks the same words he spoke many years ago, as if nothing had changed. She couldn't believe that she was the only one who had changed, so she said that she would then address him as she was used to, but only in private, and he shouldn't come here again. Her parents would be embarrassed if they saw him. Tess was very happy and started hugging her. She asked him to be lighter because she couldn't breathe and also noticed that he was sticking. Yes, over these long 14 years we had to go through a lot, but now everything is finally getting better. She entered Conceum and was given access to the palace library and can now spend her time studying magic. Tess is fine. Her family has been allowed to return to the capital, so she can return to her world with a light heart. How glad she is that their relationship has remained the same. Tess asked if she had continued her training in fencing and magic in Valen. The lady confirmed this. She was lucky to have these good teachers. Thanks to them, she did not lag behind her peers and was able to quickly get used to Conceum. Tess added that she was truly amazing. The girl asked what about him and what he had been doing all this time. The emperor smiled. After they were exiled to Valen, Euseniel had been upset with Tess for a while. Their family was not guilty of anything, but suddenly lost all rights and privileges. Tess had not sent her any news, and she thought that he was doing just fine without her. But when she found out what had happened to him, they say that His Majesty hardly let the crown prince out of the palace after his birthday. Only nobles below the status of duke are allowed to enter the castle. The empress gave birth to her second son. The girl was trying something today that Tess had a younger brother. Her resentment was replaced by shock. After the birthday of another pretender to the throne, he must have had a hard time. His parents were probably unhappy with the way he had changed. Tess thought it was obvious he had been thinking only about her all this time. Euseniel asked if that was why it took him a year after ascending to the throne to return them to the capital. He doesn't even know how long she waited for it. Tess asked if she really wanted to see him again that much. He took her hand and said that it made him immensely happy. After that, they almost kissed. But the lady moved away from him and said that she did not want it. This is not true at all. She wanted her family to be allowed to return home. Tess said that he was filled with impatience for their meeting every night. He managed in his mind to give him the gods a chance to see her face again. He missed her so much after they looked into each other's faces, the lady began to blush, and the prince noticed it. He thought that maybe she had a fever, but the girl said that it was him and that he was acting strange. Tess was surprised and asked again. He also noted that he had always been like that. Euseniel couldn't help but agree, but added that things were somehow different now. Come to think of it, Tess had touched her often before, so she didn't understand why his touch was so exciting to her now. Tess asked how exactly differently. The girl realized that she needed to think sensibly. Most likely, she was embarrassed because she hadn't seen him for a long time. The girl didn't understand what had happened, what caused such a sudden change. The prince said that everything was fine, and he would wait until she got used to it. Euseniel asked him to stop. Tess noted that if he did, she would have to come to him more often. The girl asked irritably if he thought she was burning with desire to see his face every day. She would be busy with research work, so she would not be able to visit him. Tess said no, and she would visit him. After that, he kissed her hand. Euseniel doesn't quite understand what's going on. She thought it was some kind of impudence when he said she would visit him. Well, she was also curious about what exactly he meant. He left some ambiguous message and then disappeared. She was confused. She noticed that the light was on in the reception area and did not understand why it was on at such a late hour. When she went inside, she saw that the Marquis was there, and he immediately rushed towards her. The Duke did not understand what Marquis Suen was doing. The girl was in complete shock when she saw him there. The Marquis simply begged for help. The girl realized that it had begun. Euseniel asked her father what was going on. And the Marquis continues to decide what happened. He asks her to save his daughter, Lily. His daughter has already spent several days in a cold dungeon, and she may die. Euseniel noted that she had no idea why she needed to listen to this. The Duke asked the Marquis where his manners were. Lily Suen was thrown into prison because she insulted her family. As the injured party, there is nothing she can do about it. And if he came to ask her for a favor, then maybe he should be more polite to her. Still, the Marquis agreed that she was right in everything and asked for forgiveness for his rudeness. He asked her once again to save his daughter, because she was impolite, but she did not deserve to die. Euseniel sighed and said that she didn't understand why he kept saying that. But even if the emperor allowed her to be executed, just one order wouldn't be enough since she was the Marquis's daughter. First, it must be approved by the aristocratic confederation, but not a single member of it will allow this. The Duke said that the confederation no longer exists. The emperor abolished it, sending more than half of the active participants to the chopping block. Now she understood what Edel was talking about when he said that when His Majesty ascended the throne, a bloody wind arose in the empire, and therefore it was better for her not to get involved with him. While they were away from the capital, everything turned upside down. Finally, peace and quiet. At least the Marquis's son turned out to be a reasonable young man. If he hadn't taken it, the Duke would have had to call the guards. It's already good that the father was nearby. The son took his father home. The Marquise was indignant and told him that he was shocked with you, that he did not feel sorry for Lily at all. The Marquise's son also asked for forgiveness for his father's behavior in front of the lady. They will return to them on an official visit. And he apologizes again. Unlike her father, Noose has control over himself, and he reminds her of Orin. She suggested to her father to return to the previous conversation. The Confederation no longer exists. Its members were indeed sent to the scaffold. The Duke heard that some nobles were preparing a coup d'etat while they were in Valais. However, the leader of the rebels, Duke Rantia, died suddenly, and after the Imperial Knights swore allegiance to the Crown Prince, the plot was forgotten. Now the lady understood why Tess had ordered the traitor to be executed as soon as he inherited the throne. His number exposed the criminals and confiscated all their lands and property. Now their property belongs to the Empire. Having learned about this, he was even glad that they were not in the capital at that time. Otherwise, they could have fallen into hot water. They say the Emperor has become much calmer since they returned from exile, but the atmosphere in the palace is still hardly friendly, so she must be careful. Euseniel said there was no need to worry. His Majesty would join them after the morning meeting, so she could wait for him here. Euseniel planned to stay away from the palace for a while, but learned that the aristocrats wanted to overthrow the crown prince. And now she can't do anything about her anxiety. Everyone probably thinks the emperor is an inhuman tyrant, but they don't know what Tess is really like. She wants to make sure he's okay, and at the same time ask him to release Lily Juan. After that, the emperor came up to her and greeted her. He spent that as she can see he is right. He said that she would visit him. He left with a smile and joy. She wondered why he was so strict with Lily Juan. She didn't deserve such a cruel punishment. Tess pointed out that it was all because of this that she had insulted her, and besides, she was not so worried that he wanted to feel sorry for her even less. Euseniel didn't understand what I was doing to her. She was just her friend's sister, and she didn't want to deal with her family. Tess said that in that case she should kiss him, and then he would let the girl go. Just one kiss after that silence followed. After a few seconds, the guy got upset because he almost succeeded. Tess thought she was going to kiss him after all. The girl blushed very much and asked what else he wanted. Well, this time this will do. Her hand tastes good too. Euseniel said that she had had enough. She knew that she couldn't cook porridge with him. Tess, please, because it hurts him to drink. The lady said it was natural. He thought she was angry with him, but the girl wanted him to shut up already. The emperor promised to spare Lily. Euseniel shouted that she didn't care. He could do whatever he wanted. The girl was a little taken aback that she had really almost kissed him. She had to put him in his place. Tess asked her not to be angry with him. He apologized again. She decided not to put him in his place because this was Tess, the crybaby, who was afraid of everything, threw tantrums, and followed her around. She had to constantly look after him because he was very fragile and frail. He was like a little brother to her. At least that's what she thought. Tess assumed she would accept his apology. Euseniel didn't understand at all why her heart began to beat faster. Euseniel sighed. She thought her heart would jump out. She had to summon all her self-control to keep her feelings from showing. It's a good thing she managed to escape. If Tess finds out about this, she'll immediately lead her down the aisle. The girl's heart was beating very fast. She thought that the white suit suited him. After this, the girl became embarrassed again, because now she was only thinking about what she decided to throw it out of her head. But she was still unable to push the emperor away. Even his scent made her tremble. Every gesture he makes lures her in. When he's near, her body becomes unbearably hot. He changed so much for her and lost so much because of her, and he invades her thoughts again and again, no matter how much she tries to forget about him. She seems to be as obsessed with him as he is with her. She needs to focus on getting back to her world, but she's not sure if she can just turn a blind eye to how much he's suffered for 14 years. The butler met his lady at home. She finally returned, so she asked what happened while she was gone. The butler announced that they had a guest and that he was waiting for her in the garden. Euseniel was surprised and asked again, after which she immediately went into the garden. In the garden, she was greeted by the Marquis's son. When the syllables announced that someone from the Wen family had arrived, the lady thought they meant her friend Irene, but it turned out to be Lord Nuss. The gentleman would like to discuss a recent incident. Euseniel noted that she saw that this time he had applied for a visit. It seems he had not even suspected this before. The gentleman said that he was forced to apologize for this again. He asks for forgiveness for the rudeness of his father and Lily. This was unexpected for the lady. She asked him to stand up and say that it was not he who needed to apologize. Euseniel didn't think he would start bowing to her. He was completely different from his father and younger sister. Nuss believed that it was his duty and that his family had made a mistake, and as its next head, he should bear responsibility for it. Euseniel added that she and Oren were very similar, and the gentleman noted that everyone thought so. The lady asked why Lillian was so different from them. Nuss believed that she knew that her sister was desperate to marry her off to His Majesty. At first, they wanted Aurine to become the next empress, but their plan did not succeed. In truth, Lily was born to take her place, and she was perfectly happy with the prospect. That's why she was very nervous when she learned of her return to the capital, all because of their close relationship with His Majesty. Euseniel noted that this was not the case at all, and that they were mistaken in their assumptions. Nuss was surprised, and the lady said that she and the emperor were just friends and nothing more. This made the gentleman feel relieved. Euseniel was very surprised and asked again, and saw that the gentleman had turned red. The lady waited for his answer. The gentleman said that he was only apologizing for the behavior of his sister Lily. Euseniel said that in that case she accepts the apology, and his sister will be fine, so there's no need to worry about it. Nuss was embarrassed and said that she remained the same fair and honest girl he admired. Euseniel could not believe that he was flattering her and noted that it was not worth exaggerating, but the gentleman said that he was telling the pure truth and wanted to repay her for her kindness. He heard that she had received several invitations to dinner parties and banquets, so he asks permission to accompany her. He noted that a lot had changed during her absence, and now it was necessary to come to such events with a partner. Since he was going to inherit the title of Marquise, he knew about what was happening in the capital better than anyone else. Euseniel couldn't help but agree that he was right. It would be nice to be aware of what was going on in high society if Nuss Suin became her companion. It would be much easier for her to gather information. So she agreed to it and said that she would inform him about the events she planned to attend. She was also very grateful for the very noble gesture. Nuss hoped that when they met again, she would call him simply by his first name. He asked to be treated as easily as others. A few days later, Sister asked Euseniel if the Liana was ready, because the Lord's carriage was already downstairs. Gail was just in shock, because her sister looks absolutely stunning. She didn't expect that. Gail was eager to go with her. Euseniel remarked that she would still miss the days when she was too guilty to attend social events. The little sister added that her companion was probably waiting for him for a long time. "He is so handsome." When the gentleman noticed that she was looking at him, he immediately smiled and became embarrassed. Euseniel remembered him saying that he hoped she would just call him by his first name. She was curious about what he was thinking. Already in the carriage, the gentleman asked how she was doing. Euseniel was grateful that he asked for this material, which was not a bad thing. Nuss had heard that she had been offered to participate in the new magical project of Consume. It is very difficult to comprehend magic unless one is born a scientist. Her intellect is truly astounding. Euseniel noted that he seemed to know quite a lot about her. The Lord remained silent at these words. He noted that she was still formal. Euseniel said that she was, because they weren't that close yet. He needs to understand that people around him might think that there is something between them if they call each other by their first names, considering that they are not even friends. The lady asked whether these rules had changed, and whether it was now permissible to address members of noble families by name. The gentleman laughed, but she didn't understand what was funny about it. Nuss said, "Of course not, and everything is the same." She just always tried to keep a respectful distance from him. Even when they were little, she refused to call him by his first name. He asked if he could call her by her first name, only, like Lord Ethel. The girl then said that their families would be embarrassed because of this, so it's not worth it. And then she became friends with his sister, Auren. Now the lady understood what was being discussed. Nuss admitted that he felt like there would be no problems now, so he asks her to consider him as her younger brother or close friend. Or perhaps there is another reason for her refusal. Since he is her friend's brother, she thinks she can call him by his first name, although she had no idea why she insisted on it. In that case, he supposed he could address her that way too. The lady said that he could do as he wished. At the event, they greeted Auren and Etil. Euseniel couldn't believe her eyes, because she thought they came together. The lady asked when they had managed to become so close. Auren noted that she had misunderstood everything. When she said that Lord Nuss would be her companion, he had no choice but to invite Auren. Auren was outraged and asked if this was how he decided to thank her for the service she had rendered. The guy also noted that he thought she didn't like formal receptions. It so happened that she could not afford to be ignorant of what was happening in high society. And Nuss, by the way, offered her his company. Nuss was very happy that she agreed and called her by her shortened name, Yule. Euseniel realized that he had already settled in. Not that she was uncomfortable. Edel was simply horrified and asked since when he called her that. Nuss turned to the Lord and noted that he also used this nickname, Ethel, said that he had known her much longer. Auren said that the gentlemen should have their own fun, but the ladies had a lot to discuss. Euseniel was very grateful to her friend, because she would finally be able to breathe a sigh of relief. Auren felt like she should be the one thanking her for helping bring Lily home safe and sound. His Majesty released her on the condition that their family would hand over their possessions in the south to the Empire. Euseniel was surprised and asked if they should give everything along with the diamond mines, which are the main source of income for their family. Auren thought it was better to lose them than Lily. Euseniel thought Tess would just let her go and not demand anything. He used this chance to weaken the Xuan family and replenish the imperial treasury. He must want to gain more influence and power. The lady noted that this crybaby made an excellent strategic move. Auren added that he was no longer the same person she knew. He had eradicated all the corruption in the empire, so he had nothing to worry about anymore. And because her family is still alive and well, it's already a huge miracle. It seems he's handling his government duties much better than she thought, and apparently she shouldn't have worried about it. Taurine added that after all 14 years have passed, which is quite a long time, there were some business matters to discuss with Lord Nuss, and with Edel, they said that he was the strongest contender for the title of captain and the Imperial Guard. During this time, everyone around her has made significant progress in their fields of activity. It's time to catch up. At last, the lady returned. Mother thought she had enjoyed the evening. Gale was also interested in how it had gone. Euseniel asked them not to even start. She had been surrounded by a noisy crowd all night, and it was very tiring. Well, considering the fact that this is her first social event in a long time, she did a great job. Seal asked who her daughter liked more, Nuss or Ethel. The lady asked again. Mother said that if she couldn't throw it away, now she could flirt with two. At the same time, the Duke entered the room and was simply horrified that his daughter was dating two young men at once. Euseniel tried to tell her father that this was not so, but her mother said that she should marry one. Since she returned to high society, she has had more worries. The lady said that the magic formula they had derived did not match the calculations, so she asked them to look at it more closely. On weekdays, she was busy with the project in Contium, and on weekends, she attended social events with Nuss. As a result, people finally stopped judging their relationship with the hereditary principle, although rumors about it had not died down since the incident that happened with Lily. The lady is already very tired. There is no end to these papers. If you think about it, during this time, she has never seen Tess because of her very busy schedule. She even spent the night in the lab because she didn't want to waste time traveling home and back. Although Tess didn't get in touch with her either. He probably has his hands full too. He's the emperor after all. The research she is doing will help her return to her world She has a chance to find her way home, so she needs to focus. A year has almost flown by both academic and calendar, which means it's time to get ready to celebrate the new year. The lady sighed and realized that she was practically living on air as it was. And the New Year's ball was just around the corner. Her vicious circle is diet and exercise, finding the right dress, and going out. Gail was surprised that they organized balls on New Year's Eve. The sister realized that this was her first New Year in the capital, so she didn't know. In the northern part of the empire, winters are often harsh, and people often die from the cold. That's why it is customary to celebrate this holiday modestly, without any special excesses. But in the capital, on the contrary, the New Year is celebrated on a grand scale. On the festive morning, the imperial family distributes butter and bread to their subjects in remembrance of the dead, and in the evening, a grand celebration takes place in the palace, which lasts for several days. They were invited to it. Gail said that the opening would not take place on her birthday anyway. That's why Yusiniel doesn't like this red tape. On this day, he wants to sit in silence and relax and not go to balls. On her birthday, they always had a family holiday dinner, but apparently not this time, and she was too young to go with them. That's why my little sister felt abandoned. The capital is so beautiful and interesting, but she feels like a stranger here. She and her dad are always very busy, and she rarely sees them. But now she has so many words that she can't remember their names, and the room is terribly huge. Yuseniel noted that she simply hadn't gotten used to it yet. For a while, they were deprived of all these privileges, but she would quickly get used to them. Gail added that, besides, she wasn't going anywhere. Her sister smiled at her. Gail decided to stop being sad and said that she would help her choose a festive outfit. Yuseniel thought that was very sweet of her. The little sister was thinking about what to put on and suddenly remembered something. She asked about that red brooch. Yuseniel was immediately surprised. This is the one she got for her 18th birthday. She was saving it for a special occasion. Yuseniel took out the box with it and assumed that her sister was talking about this decoration. The girl remarked that it was big and beautiful, and she said that her friend had given it to her. Yuseniel said that she was not sure about this experience. She thinks so. And so she decided to look for a dress that would suit her. Yuseniel remembered it snowed that day too. Winter that year when Yuseniel turned 18. Yuseniel was very tired, so she said that she still needed a break. The gentleman was surprised that she was already exhausted. In 10 years, she had never defeated him. The girl did not understand how she could defeat him, because he was the dragon Bernard. The guy pointed out that she was an elf. Yuseniel corrected him and said that only half, and that doesn't count. Instead of chatting in vain, it's better to push the snow off your clothes. If Ciel saw her like this, he would immediately raise a fuss. At that moment, her mother came out. Mother said she shouldn't overexert herself on her own birthday and hoped she wasn't hurt. Yuseniel told her that everything was fine. Ciel turned to Bernard and asked if he was being too strict with her. Bernard said that she herself asked him to train her daughter and added that she was overprotective of the girl. Yuseniel met Bernard 10 years ago on the main street of Valence when she was helping an old woman who almost slipped. Then Bernard turned to her and remarked that she was quite nimble for a human. Then he met Ciel and asked what she was doing there. Yuseniel was very surprised because he called her mother by name, so she became interested in who he was. After she found out that Bernard knew her mother, he became her fencing teacher. Bernard said that at 18, children are already considered adults, but her mother said that she would remain a child even if she turned 100. At first, she found it difficult to accept the fact that they were sent into exile. Yuseniel was devastated that she could not return to her world and blamed herself for her family's exile. These feelings weighed heavily on her shoulders during this time. My sister called Yuseniel because she and her father baked her a cake and added strawberry jam to it. Time passed. They started to smoke early, and they quickly went to the table. Memories of what happened in the capital gradually stopped bothering her, and then she received this gift. They immediately began to congratulate her on her 18th birthday. The girl was very grateful to them all. Gaëlle couldn't wait to open her present. Yuseniel turned to Bernard and asked if he had prepared a gift for her. He didn't understand why he suddenly had to give her a gift. Then he said that he allows her to come to his place and she can consider it her gift. She always comes when she's in a bad mood and drinks all his tea. Sometimes Ciel feels like Bernard is closer to her than they are. Euseniel said that they spend a lot of time together, and she is comfortable with him, so his mother is even a little jealous. The girl noted that she herself wanted Bernard to teach her fencing. She kept saying that she should train harder and more often. It's just from the prophecy. Euseniel was surprised and asked now, and the master said that she should be ready. Everyone was in complete shock and tension. Father didn't understand what was being said, but Ciel jumped up and told Bernard to watch his language. He apologized, though, because he was to blame. The girl had never seen her mother so angry since that very audience with the emperor. She has no idea what they are talking about. It must be that this prophecy is somehow connected to hers. The gentleman couldn't believe he was late. It was Book. He wished Euseniel a happy birthday. Bernard asked where his tea was. She said to the lady that she would not pour any more. The girl found this funnier. Beach presented his gift. It was a book on fire magic, and he was sure she would find a use for it. Euseniel was very curious about how he knew that she had problems mastering fire magic. He noted that she had had difficulty using it in the previous lesson. Euseniel remembered this, so she was confused. Book turned out to be with the son of the old woman she helped. And also the only mage in Valenne. His mother is long gone, but he spends a lot of time with her family, teaching magic to the girl. Euseniel said that for some reason, pyromagic was the hardest thing for her. Book added that it was very hard to create a horse when it was so cold outside. It's not an easy magic to master, but he'll show her a few tricks in the next lesson, so don't worry about it. The girl said that he was simply the best magician she knew, and his explanation was much clearer than the lectures of the capital's professors. Book was embarrassed and said that he was not that good. He didn't even have a rank. The magicians of the Northern Empire regularly take exams in the Magic Tower, after which they are distributed into levels and assigned ranks. Sometimes she becomes very curious about who Book really is. He has the manners and skills of a high-class magician, but at the same time, he is very kind and cheerful. Like all the people in Valanda does not know him, so she assumes that he does not belong to a noble family. After that, he gave her something else. This decoration, very beautiful. It shines so much that you can't take your eyes off it. The girl had never seen anything like it, so she asked what kind of stone it was. It doesn't look like a ruby. Book said he didn't choose it, so he can't say. Euseniel was very surprised and asked who he was from. Then the man thought about it and said that he somehow vaguely remembered. But he was just walking towards it when he ran into a young man who asked him to give her this jewel. Then the gentleman stopped him and asked if he could do something for him. He ordered to give this stone to Euseniel. The girl was very surprised. The gentleman continued to say that the stranger said this because he wanted to give it to her himself, but he couldn't, and so he asked to do it for him. Euseniel asked what he looked like. She believed that this young man was blonde with blue eyes. It was very strange. He could not remember the face of that man. He must have cast a spell of oblivion on him. It seems that Book can be trusted. Euseniel asked again. Book noted that they were also very strong. It might not be him, but she still decided to ask if he remembered anything. Well, the man decided to think about it and said that he was dressed too lightly. He himself seemed to be carved out of ice, and although a smile played on his lips, it turned out that he was about to cry. Euseniel said that she would be back soon, but Book didn't understand where she ran to because there was a snowstorm outside. A lot of time has passed. Since then, he is probably already far away. Only one person close to her calls her by her full name. Only he would come in such a blizzard, dressed inappropriately for the weather, and wait in the cold to give her a gift. Only he. She thought it must be Tessa's crown prince. She really wants it to be him. The girl realized that in the end it was he. Book said that he had never seen such mysterious stones, which made her unusually curious. She even tried to study its composition in Conceum. She still didn't find out anything, but she knows one thing for sure. Every time she looks at this bright red gem, her heart is ready to break into 1,000 pieces. It's as if he's begging her not to forget about him. Judging by the size of the stone, it's probably quite expensive. She is very interested in what he was thinking when he asked Book to give this to her. Gail was absolutely delighted because the soup was simply amazing. Her parents told her to try something else. I try a lot of things here. Father thought that something was wrong with Yuel, or that she wasn't hungry. The girl said that everything was fine, and there was no need to worry about her. Lately, she often stays overnight in Conceum, so they assumed that the amount of work was so great. There had been many monasurges in the empire, Over the past 10 years, she needed to thoroughly study all the available information. If it weren't for the New Year's ball tomorrow, she would have spent the entire night reading. Father was simply horrified and said that she had just transferred to this academy, and there was no need to burden herself like that. Father added that, in addition, it was incredibly difficult to combine participation in such a large-scale project with studies. Mother asked him to be quieter. Eusenio said she promised it wouldn't reflect on their family's reputation. She studied history and humanities with Bernard and Buck and was well ahead of the curve, so she won't have any problems with her academic performance. Her father was simply horrified and didn't understand what their family's reputation had to do with it. Her dad doesn't worry about that. Mother sighed and said that, besides everything else, she attends social events every weekend and hardly rests. Nuss said he would pick her up the following weekend, and the lady wished him a good journey. Eusenio immediately thought that as soon as she got to the room, she would immediately sit for the test. The parents were very worried and said that they were just concerned about her health. The girl said that her father had been appointed minister and that she would be able to help him if she knew what was going on in high society. Then they will be able to avoid a repeat of what happened 14 years ago. But she doesn't need to put this unbearable burden on her fragile shoulders. They asked to share it with them, because they are family after all. Indeed, they are family. That's why she wants to protect them. If she takes care of everything in advance, she will be able to leave them calmly when the time comes. Eusenio has become very accustomed to this world, so much so that she sometimes wonders if she really wants to go home. But she is still tormented by the nightmare of what happened 20 years ago, pain in the lower abdomen, and the way her mother asks her not to leave her alone. Eusenio still hears her mother's voice and sobs. Seal turned to her daughter and asked if she really continued to have nightmares. The father was simply horrified and said that then it was necessary to immediately call the doctor. Gail asked her sister if it was true that nightmares exist. Eusenio stroked her head and said that no. She had forgotten about them since childhood and was sleeping like a baby. But let it be, so I won't overexert myself anymore, so that they don't worry. The father said that was great and asked her to tell them if she needed help. Eusenio noticed that her mother was happy when she started attending dinner parties, so she asked why. Seal said that she needs to meet a lot of men to find the one. To be honest, she was even worried that she might end up marrying a lazy guy like Bernard. His age is unknown, but father said that Bernard is too old for his daughter. Seal said that she did the same for him, but that didn't stop them. And even though Bernard has a bad character, he's quite attractive. That can't be taken away. Your father was shocked with you that his darling was praising another man while sitting next to her. Gail said that her sister likes much more handsome and gallant young men. Her type is modest ones with unexpected smiles. Eusenio was simply horrified because she understood who they were thinking about now. The girl asked her sister why she had decided that. Gail asked if she remembered how they had gone grocery shopping last winter, and then she was helping a guy on the street. She asked if he was okay, after which the guy thanked her for her help. The lady made sure he wasn't hurt and noted that he hit it pretty hard. The gentleman laughed and said that thanks to her, he was back on his feet again. Eusenio thought that it was the crown prince, but he immediately said that his name was Miel, and he asked to be allowed to treat her to tea in gratitude for her kindness. The girl thought that she was acting as if she had fallen. It was not the crown prince. She apologized and said that she was in a hurry. Miel said that it was a great pity, but if they met again, he would definitely return the favor. Gail said that she couldn't take her eyes off him, so that's what her sister thought. It was because he looked very much like the crown prince, so she was staring. Mother asked again if she was saying his name was Miel. She said that since his name ended in L, maybe he was an elf too. Elven names ending in Elgael was simply delighted because she had never met other elves. The elven youths are wonderfully handsome, simply a sight to behold. Gail asked if they were really even more handsome than their father. Seal promised to tell her when there were no prying ears around me. The lady said that she was joking, so she asked her husband not to be angry. Eusenio wants to go home as soon as possible, not only because of the nightmares. The more time she spends with them, the less confident she is that she can easily part with them. Seal turned to her husband and did not understand why he was so sad. His wife thought something was bothering him. He hadn't said a word since dinner. The master said it was nothing. Ciel decided to say that what she said at dinner was just a joke, and Mylene is the only one for her. After that, she kissed him on the forehead. The gentleman said that he knew about it. He just remembered the nightmares that tormented their little girl as a child. He remembered how they ran because the baby was screaming in her sleep. She was in a lot of pain. She asked for help and drove everyone away from her. She called for her mother. CL said that she was nearby. Her father called for doctors. The lady tried to calm her daughter down, but she said that she didn't want to die. Mylene noted that she remembered how bad things were for their daughter. Seal didn't understand how she could forget. But even though the baby was suffering, the first thing she did when she woke up was to calm them down. She didn't want them to worry about her, and that makes her worry even more. They have no idea how she really feels. Ciel asked if he remembered that for a while, Yuseniel was sulking at the crown prince for returning them to the capital immediately after his accession to the throne. The father confirmed this and noted that Bernard had told them this. He had said that she was disappointed. A dubious reason for joy, the lady was happy to hear about it because her daughter always hid her feelings. At that moment, she thought that she was ready to open up to them again. She thought Yuseniel had finally felt free, but she had closed herself off from them again once they returned to the capital. It's like she's running from something. It would be better if they stayed in Valen. Seal told her husband that they must protect their daughter from the imperial family at any cost. To endure what is coming, Yuseniel needs someone more reliable, not a powerful ruler, but someone who will do anything for her. How she would like to fall in love with someone sooner, but it seems she does not want to rush things. Mylene told his wife not to worry, because he knows that he is human, and therefore cannot fully understand what she feels. But lately, the emperor has not been looking for anything at all, not with their daughter, and she herself is not rushing to him, so everything will be fine. The day of the New Year's ball. A lot of people have gathered here. All of them are filled with a sense of anticipation of the holiday and dressed to the nines. But of course, none of them can outshine the main star of the evening, her daughter Yuseniel. The girl didn't understand why she was a star. Her mother said that today was her birthday. Yuseniel noted that her sister had done a great job choosing her outfit. She's waiting for them at home, so they need to come back as soon as possible. She's sad there, and she asked them to have some fun for her on the way. Mother remarked that she was a very wonderful sister and was very happy because her girls were very friendly. Yuseniel wanted Mother to stop this. By the way, today, Mother looks especially elegant. Seal said that her father promised that he would come to the ball as soon as he finished work in the palace. But he never liked such events, so she doesn't understand why. After these words, the father immediately showed up and said that he had been waiting for them for a long time. Here he sent him such a beautiful wife and daughter. Seal said that he looks amazing too. Yuseniel added that they were both worthy of each other. Father said that this was their first public appearance since returning to the capital, so they had to look the part. Everyone thought they were just a dazzling couple, and their daughter remarked that they were perfect. Ciel said that if she was jealous, she should get married soon. She also added that she already has 2 worthy candidates for the role of groom. Or they are good enough for me. She is quite demanding of men. Also, the wife suggested to go inside already. The high standards of hers can only be blamed on their unattainable ideal. The woman noted that over these 14 years, the lady had not aged a bit. The Duchess was beautiful. Yuseniel was surprised, because there was a whole line of people waiting for them. The lady said that she was an elf. Mother was making a lot of efforts to maintain her composure. She was probably out of the habit of moving in social circles. If she had her way, she would have simply ignored everyone. The lady decided to go for a walk. It had been a long time since she had been in this banquet hall, and it had not changed at all since that day. Here she noticed a painting and wondered if it had always been there. She wondered what was under that blanket. She had only heard about this painting before. It was the creation of the empire, painted by Roselanchen. The first emperor made a deal with a deity. I received all the knowledge of the world and became a magical swordsman, and then founded the Northern Empire. This is the historical moment shown in the pictures. But Lux is usually painted in white for some reason. Here he is depicted in black. The legend of the first emperor who founded the Northern Empire is passed down from mouth to mouth. But despite the fact that their country came into being through divine blessing, it has no state religion. Although there is such a thing in the Southern Empire, and she always found this fact interesting. However, this picture depicts someone else. She had never seen him mentioned in any book. For some reason, she had a bad feeling about this. Yuseniel don't think that there is any other side than luxury. Suddenly, Edel called her and asked why the birthday girl was standing alone and bored. He congratulated her on her birthday and assumed that she was tired of social upstarts. That was exactly it. He thought she was alone here. Yuseniel said her parents were in the main hall, after which she asked why he was asking about this. Edel simply did not notice any of his acquaintances nearby. Suddenly, a red-haired girl stood between them and addressed the Lord. Aaron said that she almost forgot, so she immediately began to congratulate her. The lady was very grateful to her. Edel was indignant because the lady had frightened him. The girl said that the New Year's was about to start any minute, and they were somewhere chilling. Edel said that he knew she doesn't understand why he was scaring her. Irene said she was running around trying to find them, and she didn't see any gratitude. Yuseniel sighed, because these two are at it again. They are incorrigible. They behave like children. So she told them to hurry up because everyone was waiting for them. Edel told them not to push. He also noticed that she was quite strong. Yuseniel did not want to attract unnecessary attention this evening, but her father came up to her and said that the first dance is supposed to be with her father, so he thinks she remembers that. Ethel thought it was a bit too old-fashioned. Nuss added that if she danced with her father, her holiday would be hopelessly ruined. But father said that their family had been deprived of the pleasure of attending this ball for many years, so they needed to make up for lost time. Apparently, it's impossible. Yuseniel said that she should decide something like that. But they don't even listen to her and continue to argue. Mother noticed that she was in great demand. This whole argument broke out because of Mother, but the lady pretended that she didn't understand what she was talking about. A few minutes ago, they all met together. There is a popular belief that says that the person to whom a girl who has reached adulthood gives her first dance at a New Year's ball will end up with her betrothed. Yuseniel told her mother that it was a complete feeling. Ciel said that sometimes in the world such things happen that you are amazed. The boys heard this, and the father was the first to approach her and ask if she would do this honor to him. That's where it all started. My father said that, according to the rules of good behavior, she, a daughter, should dance her first dance with her father. The boys thought it was complete nonsense. 1 against 2, the father in the minority. They tell him that people have the right to choose who to dance with and ask for the young people to go. It seems he was in a difficult situation, so he asked his darling to save him. Yuseniel turned to her father and said that her mother wanted her to get married quickly, and she was unlikely to listen to him. Ciel said that if that was the case, then she could dance with her father. The guys were very upset, and the woman said that her decision was immutable, so they shouldn't even try to convince her otherwise. Yuseniel asked her mother what was wrong with her. She thought she would ask her to dance with Nuss or Edel. For some strange reason, the air in the palace thickened so much that it became difficult to breathe. In a sense, it was always stuffy here, but not to this extent. Yuseniel thought that something was wrong with her mother. She didn't understand why her mother wasn't answering her. The lady suggested returning home early. The girl was surprised. The father began to believe that something had happened. It wasn't air, it was aura, and it was creeping up on Yuseniel, and it was about to swallow her whole. But it is completely unclear where she came from. And then they reported that His Highness the Crown Prince had arrived. Yuseniel thought about it. She hadn't seen him for a long time. It seemed he had lost weight, and otherwise he remained the same. Mother turned to her and told her to stay close to her and her father. Yuseniel did not understand why this was so, and her mother asked her to promise that she would not leave her side for a single step. Everyone immediately began to greet the emperor. Yuseniel does not quite understand what is happening. She told her mother that they had to bow down. The emperor said that he had had enough and ordered everyone to raise their heads. He has been very busy lately and therefore has not had the opportunity to see them. The emperor is very pleased to see their entire family here. Ciel asked her daughter to step aside. The girl did not quite understand what had happened, what had caused such a sudden change. She could not believe that all this was because of His Majesty's appearance. Everyone immediately began to look at that jet-black hair and majestic posture. Tessa's hair was raven black, perfectly styled, which immediately attracted attention. This color was a clear sign of his belonging to the imperial family, a symbol of the true heir. This shade was not just beautiful, but Sacred Ciel believed that they had all been brainwashed at some point into believing in the immutability of these traditions and signs. Despite all her doubts, she could not understand how this was possible. Tespaloon, standing before her, calmly said that the year of their empire's existence had come, and therefore it was time for a celebration. He invited everyone to celebrate this momentous occasion, hoping that the next year would bring them even more success and stability. It felt like his confidence in the future was unwavering, no matter how hard it was for him in reality. He asked everyone to have fun from the heart, forgetting about all the problems. The flower petals began to fall, disappearing, as soon as they touched the palm, dissolving in the air, like a mirage, leaving behind only the ephemerality of what was happening. The spectacle created an atmosphere of a vanishing past, and it made Yusiniel feel as if the Tess she had once known was disappearing, giving way to a new, incomprehensible, and much colder emperor. In an attempt to distract herself from her obsessive thoughts, Yuseniel suggested to her father that they go dancing on the sidelines and return home immediately so as not to lose their inner harmony. But her plan was soon interrupted by the emperor himself. The emperor remarked that he remembered who was celebrating their birthday today. He expressed the hope that everyone present would happily join in the congratulations, not expecting that his attention would be drawn to another much more important goal. Tess in turn invited His Highness to accept his congratulations, but the lady, realizing that ballroom etiquette must be observed, reminded him that she had promised her father this first dance, and unfortunately, she would not be able to communicate with the emperor now. The emperor, shocked by her refusal, could not believe that the people would not allow him to steal her first dance, that this gesture was so important to her. He decisively invited her to dance in front of all the guests, putting her in an awkward position. Tess, not thinking that he would use his anger against her family, still knew that if she refused, bad rumors would start again, so she almost decided to agree. But then her father, hearing the request, shouted, "No!" The Duke, seeing that the situation was becoming tense, asked the emperor to allow them to spend this moment together. But in response, he only shrugged his shoulders, expressing his concern. Seal, not wanting to make a big deal out of it, asked her daughter to come closer. Her father proudly noted that he had long dreamed of dancing with his daughter at this particular ball, and she was truly important to him. Tess turned to Duke Hardland and noted that it was customary for young girls to dance with their peers. It was not disrespectful, but rather an old imperial tradition, and dancing with the emperor would enhance her social standing. Euseniel wondered when Tess had learned to express herself so clearly and reasonably. The lady felt how her indecisiveness sometimes affected her decisions. This was not just a question about the dance, but about her position. She thanked Tess for the offer, but explained that the daughter had already promised this first dance to her father, and that was a promise she could not break. She could only hope that the emperor would understand. The emperor suppressed his disappointment, but did not insist, adding that he would not interfere with her if she nevertheless decided to keep her word and give the dance to her father. In the end, he suggested that Lady Euseniel herself make this difficult choice, for it was her day, her first dance. The thought hung in the air, and all eyes froze for a moment. Euseniel felt that the emperor was being cunning. However, she firmly said that she would dance with her father as she had promised. There was not the slightest hesitation in her voice, although she felt that her personal feelings were hidden behind this decision. The emperor seemed resigned to this decision, although he did not hide his slight disappointment. But then, suddenly, he grabbed her hand and whispered her name. Euseniel almost thought he was going to kiss her right there in front of everyone. However, he only noted that she was wearing that very brooch that suited her so well. The lady did not understand what exactly the emperor meant, but something in his voice made her wary. Tess asked if she was curious about the stone. He promised to tell her about it, but demanded her first dance in exchange. Then he asked her with a smile what she would say to his proposal. Euseniel considered. It was obvious that Tess did not want to back down, but she decided to agree, offered her hand to the emperor, intending to fulfill his condition. It was a compromise she could accept. Seal, watching this, did not agree with this at all. Her eyes flashed with worry, and she quickly told her daughter to return immediately. She understood that the situation was getting out of control. Tess looked at the Duchess in surprise, noting that her words were clearly contrary to established rules. He asked if she really believed that two young people had no right to dance together, especially on such an important occasion. He reminded her that this was one of the oldest rules of ballroom etiquette in their empire. And if she thought otherwise, perhaps she was behaving this way because she was afraid that he might harm her beloved daughter. But Tess hastened to reassure her, assuring her that Lady Euseniel's safety was his first priority. He gave her his word that not a hair would fall from her head, and that he dared ask for no more. He added that, of course, if Euseniel herself did not want it. And so, when everything became clearer, he suggested that they go to the dance floor, assuring that no one would interfere. As they walked away, Euseniel, still tense, told him that he knew perfectly well that she would never even think about agreeing to his advances. Tess, in turn, asked if she was really so sure of that. During the dance, the Emperor began to notice that something was wrong with the girl. She did not look happy as she should have. He could not understand what exactly was bothering her. Her face reflected only anxiety, and her movements were constrained. At one point, the girl stepped on his foot, and Tess began to think she was angry. He couldn't be sure, of course, but her behavior clearly didn't correspond to the positive emotions he expected. Euseniel explained quietly that it wasn't that, she just felt uncomfortable in his arms, and it was hard to dance with that tension. Tess, chuckling, began to think that maybe he was leading her badly. Euseniel was very embarrassed and said that she didn't think she was a very good dancer. It wasn't so much a confession as an attempt to ease the tension they were both feeling. The gentleman reassured her. The Emperor, trying to lighten the mood, said that there was nothing wrong with that. She could just follow him and the dance would be over. There was goodwill in his eyes, and he wanted to help her feel confident. When Tess looked at her, he couldn't help but think that she was a real goddess. Every gesture, every movement of hers radiated such beauty that he felt as if it were a crime to be so charming. Euseniel, feeling increasingly uncomfortable, began to get angry. She asked if he was going to hold her for the entire dance, as she was tired of all the attention and pressure. She asked him to let her go to regain some personal space. She noticed that all of their guests could hear their conversation, but they fortunately could not see their interactions fully. The Emperor, noticing her confusion, wondered how to get out of this awkward situation. He made up his mind, and again, with a slight movement of his hand, the petals began to fall. This gesture distracted the guests' attention, and now no one could focus on what was happening between him and Euseniele. Tess felt that he had succeeded in distracting everyone's attention from their dance, and that everyone was now focused on the falling petals. At this point, the mistress, seeing that all eyes were on them, asked him to stop fooling around. She switched to a more formal tone and began to address him as you, knowing how much he disliked it when she stuck to formalities. It was her way of cooling his ardor and returning to a calmer atmosphere. Tess, a little disappointed with her approach, said that she was a pest, but the mistress replied that he should not call her that. She asked him to stop using magic, otherwise his frivolous tricks could end badly. He had spent too much energy trying to distract people, and she had never seen him use such charms to befuddle people. She realized that perhaps his actions were overly dramatic, but she was surprised that he hadn't needed any preparation. Tess was shocked that she thought it was frivolous, because for him it was a way to make her day special. He just wanted her to feel important, not something overdone. He said that if she was worried about what others thought, he would simply erase their memory of what happened, and she shouldn't worry about how they would perceive her actions. It would take a little more effort, of course, but it would be worth it. He assured her that she should only think about him now, and everything else would remain in the past. Tess assured her that he could give her anything she wanted, but his words burned her skin, and she couldn't help but feel that his antics would come back to haunt her someday, because nothing he did was simple. Euseniel thought about it, and said that if he really wanted to please her, he should tell her about the stone in this brooch. She tried to understand what exactly was hidden in this gift that he might have offered her. She did a lot of research herself, but she still couldn't figure out exactly what stone this brooch was made of. This stone remained a mystery to her, and she was determined to solve this secret. Tess noticed her curiosity, and with a slight smile replied that if she really wanted to know more about the stone, he was ready to tell her. However, in exchange for her first dance, he was sure that this small compromise would be interesting to her. Euseniel hesitated for a moment, wondering whether she should agree, But in the end, she offered her hand to the emperor, deciding that this exchange was entirely reasonable. She wanted to know more, and she was especially curious about the secret of the brooch. Tess, feeling that she had given in, nodded in satisfaction. He said that the stone was not just a decoration. It was rare and could tell a lot about the wearer. It was not just a gift, but a sign. Eusennial, looking more closely at the stone, felt that there was some special power hidden behind it. The stone was dark in color, almost black with deep shades of blue. It sparkled like the stars in the night sky and seemed almost alive. Tess went on to explain that the stone was part of an ancient artifact that was passed down through the imperial family. The stone was a symbol of power and strength. It was a repository of magical energy that was used in the most important rituals. Eusennial felt her interest peak. The stone was indeed something special, and she wondered if this might be more important than she had realized. But she was in no rush to make a decision, and decided that it would be worthwhile to talk to him later. Tess approached again, and said that if she really wanted to know everything he had to tell her, she would have to dance with him. He was sure that this was not just a dance. This was an opportunity to learn more about her own destiny and future. Eusennial smiled and replied that she could promise him a dance, but she was in no hurry to reveal all her thoughts. She understood that there were many secrets in life, and this was only one of them. The dance, like many other things in their lives, was just part of the game. So she wants to know what it is. Eusennial pressed Tess for an explanation, insisting that he explain what the heart is that is troubling him so much. Tess felt her insistence filling the space between them, and he didn't know how to explain exactly what was bothering him. Eusennial was becoming more and more surprised, and began to ask questions. Tess looked at it and sighed and said that it was literally his heart. He said that it was not a metaphor, but really the heart that made him suffer and hurt. He began to say that her appearance in his life had played a huge role. He felt that her light could somehow help him understand this painful state. When Tess thought back to his childhood, all he felt was pain and loneliness. He was alienated from everyone, didn't know how to relate to others, and didn't know what exactly was making his heart ache so much. The maids ran around the palace restlessly, trying to find His Highness. Tess always disappeared, and they did not understand where he could have gone. But finally, they found him in one of the secluded corners of the palace. Last time he hid in the pantry, and this time he was hiding in a dark corner again. And now he was found. The maids rushed to him ready to help, but Tess refused. They hurried to report the discovery to His Majesty. But despite this, they saw that something was wrong with the boy. He looked very weak and worried, almost losing his strength. The maids did not understand why he was shaking so much and asked if he could hear them, but the boy simply remained silent, not wanting to explain. He felt his body breaking in pain and did not want to look at people. Tess saw them as black, as if their souls were hidden from his sight, as if their auras were clots of fog that hid all their true feelings. He himself suffered from this. The boy could not hold back any longer and hit one of the maids to stop them from coming so close. The others started asking if she was hurt, but he did not want to answer them. For a moment, the maid actually felt pain, but she was fine. However, Tess felt anxiety and anger wash over him again, and the fire in his heart began to burn again. He screamed at them to leave him alone, to stay away, because he didn't want them to touch him. Every gesture they made caused him pain, and he felt as if he was being burned by fire. The maids, not understanding what was happening to the boy, tried to calm him down, but he was obsessed with his perception of other people's souls and could not get rid of the pain that their presence caused him. There was unbearable pain in his eyes, and Tess couldn't hide it. He cried all the time because he felt the pain getting stronger and stronger, and he didn't know how to get rid of this excruciating feeling. Tess was an unusual child, and he had an ability he couldn't explain. He could see other people's souls. The aura of each soul was like a veil that hid the person's identity from the eyes of others. The boy never understood the emotions of those around him because he could not see their faces. Souls were everything to him, and he could not discern them from the outside. This created even more isolation and misunderstanding. He felt that the human soul was like a veil covering everything around him, and this prevented him from connecting with others. Tess thought that his mother was upset again, and this tormented him, The boy asked his mother if she was angry with him, but she replied that she was not at all. However, her disappointment was understandable, since he had missed classes again and even hit the maid. Tess knew she didn't understand him. She thought he was just a spoiled child, but he couldn't explain what was bothering him. The souls of people were so uneasily intertwined that it seemed unbearable. Tess told his mother that he simply didn't like people. He felt their greed and selfishness constantly surrounding him, and it was excruciating. It felt like they were going to swallow him whole. His mother, hearing this, could not believe it. She could not understand why her son was so against the whole world. She said that such thoughts should not occupy his head. She didn't want to hear his excuses. He repeated the same thing again as before. And so again they had to find new maids, because his behavior became more and more strange. Tessa's mother didn't understand why he couldn't just be like other children. In her eyes, he was just a capricious prince, and she couldn't understand why he was so concerned about other people's souls. But Tess knew that only he could see other people's souls. Each person had their own special aura, their own color, and this created a constant pain in his world. His eyes suffered from this constant sight. His eyes ached because they had seen too much, because they were confronted with a reality that others could not perceive. He was alone in this, and it seemed like a real punishment. The mother sighed, looking at her son, and said that she believed him. She knew that if she was not there for him, no one else would believe him. She promised to support him, even though she did not understand what he was going through. Tess felt relief when he heard these words. He believed that his mother was finally beginning to understand him, and this lifted his spirits. He was glad for her support, although he was still alone in his pain. Tessa's mother thought that he was still a child, and at his age, such whims and tantrums were normal. Children often experience difficulties, and maybe with time, he would outgrow this oddity. She hoped that he would gradually learn to control his emotions. Perhaps if she played along with him a little, he would soon calm his fears and start thinking like an adult. But her plans for the future were even grander. When Tess was old enough to inherit the throne, she planned to arrange a marriage for him with the daughter of Duke Suen. This would be the right move to strengthen the imperial power and ensure stability. The boy, having listened to all these thoughts of his mother, felt that his life was again placed under someone else's control. He felt how far this was from what he himself would have wanted, and decided that he could not come to terms with it. He said she was a liar. The mother was shocked to hear such words from her son, and began to ask him what he was talking about. She did not understand how this could happen, because she was always there trying to support him. But Tess continued that she was only pretending to believe his words and feelings. He saw through her, and knew that she was only interested in her goals, and not in him as a person. This upset him, but he could not remain silent. The mother was stunned and furious, asking how he dared to speak so impudently to her, his mother. She could not believe that her own son was accusing her of dishonesty, and this came as a huge blow to her. She responded by saying that he seemed to need a few lessons in manners. She believed that Tess simply did not understand how to behave with people, and it was unlikely that at his age he could understand all his actions. In the evening, as the day drew to a close, she approached her husband, the emperor. She expressed her concern that Tess needed more attention, and that it might be helpful for him to have a younger brother. The emperor laughed at first, not taking her suggestion seriously. He thought that Tess was too young to worry about such things. In his opinion, the child still had to grow, and the problems with him were temporary. His mother, on the other hand, was worried. She explained that Tess needed someone to be a role model for him. She was also worried about his health. He continued to have seizures, and this was bothering her. The emperor, seeing her uneasiness, disagreed with her, believing that it was just another whim. However, the mother insisted that perhaps it would be better if Tess had a new friend so that he would not feel lonely. She suggested that the Duke of Suen's daughter, a young lady, might be a suitable role for this. Perhaps if they met, Tess would change for the better and begin to look at life differently. Tess couldn't even imagine that he could open his feelings and thoughts to someone. His world was too dark and sick to allow someone to enter his life. And everything changed only after meeting her. Having the ability to see other people's souls is not as great as it might seem at first glance. The maid played with him and told him not to be afraid because this rabbit was his friend. She greeted him. The boy was surprised and asked again if he was really his friend. The maid said that she and the bunny really wanted to make friends with him, which turned out to be much easier than she thought. Earlier, the empress said that whichever of them could entertain the crown prince would receive a generous reward. Although the empress's offer was generous, she was reluctant to accept it, because all the maids who had ever interacted with the crown prince had lost their jobs. If she decided to try to get along with the crybaby prince, then she had plenty of courage. The girl believed that he was still a child, albeit a capricious one. She would just play with him and get a good reward. Whims and hysterics are one thing she hasn't seen this boy's eyes. Her gaze sends shivers down her spine. Tess asked her if she really wanted to be friends with him. The maid did not understand why he frightened them so much, since she thought he was a completely ordinary child. That's why she said that she would always be on his side and that he could trust her. The boy said she was a liar. The woman was shocked, and the boy said she was lying to him. Tess knows this for sure. The woman immediately came to apologize and begged him to forgive her. She ran away from there. The boy noticed that she didn't last long. He is already very tired of all this. That's why he wants to be alone. Since he refused to communicate with anyone except his family, his father decided to help him make friends. The father asked him to be polite and courteous when he met the young duchess. Duke Hardland is loyal to the imperial crown, and his family may provide him with great support in the future upon his ascension to the throne. Besides, he heard that he and his daughter had a lot in common. Tess couldn't believe it. It seems that this is the girl the maids were gossiping about the other day. They said that the lady had never cried since birth and thought it strange. Oh, these children. While one cries endlessly, the other does not cry at all. But they are so different that it seems that they were made for each other to balance each other out. The boy wondered what was so interesting about her that she was being discussed so much. He couldn't understand what attracted people to this girl and what she meant to everyone. But he still had to go to this reception, despite his inner resistance. Tess did not understand what the point was, because for him, all people were the same, and it was not clear to him why he needed to attract attention to himself. He asked his father if this was really necessary, because his eyes were starting to hurt from looking at other people at their hypocrisy and emptiness. The emperor, addressing the crown prince, said that he was still too young and did not understand many things, so for now he turned a blind eye to his whims. But this did not mean that he would be allowed to do whatever he wanted. He warned him that he would no longer tolerate his discontent and would not allow him to upset his mother. The boy thought not understanding what was being discussed and what exactly he should do. Tess didn't understand what he expected from him at all. His father kept insisting that he behave decently, which only irritated him even more, because it all seemed like empty words. He didn't understand why everyone was always so concerned about how he felt, while his own feelings seemed unimportant to anyone. Gritting his teeth, the boy smiled and promised to be polite. The gentleman praised him, calling him a good boy. But Tessa was already sick of this hypocrisy of false words that had no meaning. The palace was full of people with greedy intentions, dirty desires, and even his mother was obsessed with achieving her goals. Albeit the highest ones, Tess could not understand how anyone could love her. And all this time, his father loved such a woman. The boy's eyes ached from this world, and he no longer wanted to look at other people's souls full of dirt and hypocrisy. Who knew how tired he was? His thoughts were interrupted when the servants announced that the Duke had arrived with his wife and daughter. The boy didn't even know that this was going to be an important meeting. When he first saw her, he was blinded by her radiance. For the first time in his life, he was able to see someone so clearly without being hidden behind a veil. It was something different, something extraordinary. Tess couldn't see into her soul the way he was used to with other people, but with her, it was different. Her inner world was like clear glass, and that caught his attention. Since they met, Tess had wanted to never part with her. His heart was filled with feelings, and he could not get rid of the thought of her. He knew that perhaps she would consider his feelings ridiculous and naive, but he could not control what was happening in his soul. In his tiny world, full of pain and suffering, she became the only source of light that dispelled the darkness. She became the very spark that could melt his isolation. Eucenial was the only person who saw him as more than just a crown prince, but a true friend. This was something Tess perhaps lacked in his life. She noticed that his nose was bleeding and quickly hurried to tell him not to raise his head, but he confidently said that he was fine. She did not believe him and immediately insisted that he accept her help anyway. Eusaniel noticed that he was often sick, and the boy was surprised, not realizing that she could notice this. He realized that it was true. If you think about it, no one in his family was sick, and this was unusual for him. She also added that he should remember to keep his head down and that she would pinch his nose to stop the bleeding, warning him to tell her if it hurt. The boy, however, did not consider it something important and allowed her to do whatever she considered necessary. He felt that she could be trusted and that her concern was sincere. Over time, the more time they spent together, the less he cared about anything else. Eusaniel became more important to him than any palace intrigue or court games. The boy felt like Eusaniel was starting to like him, and he hoped that someday she would love him too. He dreamed of how they would get married and live happily, despite all the difficulties. But every time he tried to get closer, she repeated that he was not her type, that he was not her ideal. These words made him doubt himself and become disappointed. He thought about how to change his appearance, because he knew that she liked brunettes with black eyes, and he thought that if he could become like that, she would notice him. This was the last straw. He lost his peace of mind, because he could not understand why she could not love him for who he was. Eusaniel said that she did not want to go to another social event because she did not like unnecessary attention. It irritated her, and she preferred simplicity. She never liked ostentatious things, neither luxurious dresses nor jewelry. She knew what she liked and what she did not, and did not try to please fashion trends. And she never worried about what others thought of her. For her, the only thing that mattered was what was going on inside, what she felt herself. All that mattered to her was her studies and her quest for knowledge. Sometimes she said things so complicated that Tess couldn't understand a word. She was a mystery to him. Eusaniel wondered if there was a way to travel between worlds, but unfortunately, if there was such a way, they didn't know about it. It hurt Tess to see her in despair, so he decided that he would give her everything she wanted. It was a natural decision for him, since he could not stand aside when she was sad. If anyone asks why he does this, he will give a simple answer: because he loves Eusaniel. And for him, that is enough to make any decisions. Eusaniel was very kind, because even when he was bored, she always found time to play with him to show that he was important to her. She did not like Situ, and was always attentive to his requests. She played with him, read books, and this brought him joy. The boy was very happy with her attention. Eusaniel noticed that his eyes were red and said with concern that he was probably sick again. She always noticed the slightest changes in him. Even the most insignificant things could not escape her gaze. The way she looked at him and talked to him made his heart flutter. While she was reading the book, Tess began to yawn, so the girl assumed that he had not gotten enough sleep. The boy told her that this was not so, but he himself remembered that he had had another attack the previous night. Eusaniel told him that he could lay his head on her shoulder and take a nap, and she would wake him up as soon as she finished reading. Eusaniel was such a warm comma and so sweet, he wanted this moment to last forever. He really wanted her to love him too. He wants to be with her always. Tess didn't know what to do because she only liked dark-eyed brunettes. That's not the type she needed. Tess is becoming increasingly worried about this, and he wonders what will happen if she falls in love with someone. Eusaniel is always surrounded by attractive young men, so perhaps she can choose one of them, and then he will be left alone. When a person becomes unnecessary, people simply cross him out of their lives. Such are the rules of this cruel world. The boy remembered the Empress telling her husband that she wanted to give the populated prince a little brother. If he wanted to stay with Eusaniel, he had to win her heart. But he doesn't understand how he can do this, because he can't change his appearance at will. It would be easier if she were as mercenary and greedy as the others. At least then, she could be attracted by wealth and power. At that moment, he was more afraid of being abandoned than anything else in the world. It hadn't bothered him before, because he was already lonely. But now that Eusaniel is in his life, he can no longer refuse her sweetness. So the boy decided he needed to find a way to change his appearance. He would give anything for it. And when he was about to lose his mind, he showed up. The voice asked if he wanted to get her. If so, then he could help him. He had to just let him into his mind and soul. He seemed strange to him, but at the same time, very familiar. Tess asked him who he was. This caused conflicting feelings. He is a deity that people have forgotten. If the boy makes a deal with him, he will fulfill any of his wishes, no matter whether he wants to conquer the entire continent or bathe in gold and precious stones. He could even make Yusinil love him, the boy thought. But then he realized that he couldn't do it. She wouldn't like it, and besides, he wasn't sure if he could be trusted. The voice asked him if he knew whether he was worthy of his trust. He seems to be able to read minds. God thought he was a foolish child and said that he would give him a gift and leave him for a while. He bets that the boy will soon be very eager to meet him again. After that day, he began to grow rapidly, but the anxiety did not go away, and a series of events only confirmed his fears. He decided that this freak would simply take Yusinil away from him. Even his hair was black. It seemed to mean that she would prefer him. The boy decided that this would not happen. Tess would never agree to this. The deity came to him again and said that if they made a deal, he would take care of everything. So the crown prince agreed. The deity decided to tell him a story about the lies that more than one generation of his ancestors grew up on. The god with whom the founder of the Northern Empire made a contract only pretended to be a deity, but in reality he was a devil. However, the first emperor guessed about this, but it did not stop him from concluding the fatal deal. As a result, he received an unlimited supply of mana and access to all the knowledge in the world. This allowed him to put an end to the troubled times and found a new state, and everyone already knows what happened next. He asked the boy what he thought the devil had demanded from the emperor in exchange for his services. He set a surprisingly simple condition. He simply wished to mix his own blood with the emperor's, that's all. From that moment on, his blood flowed in every heir of the empire. This is the devil's blood. However, the demonic essence brought them all together, devoured them from the inside, and in the end, they all faced the sad fate of disappearing into the darkness. Although time diluted the bad blood and significantly weakened the influence of evil forces very soon, its concentration increased again as new emperors made new deals. That is why two of them were known as madmen and tyrants. During the periods of correction, the number of demons in the empire's domains increased exponentially. God did not like this, and so he gave earthly man a blessing and strength to fight the Prince of Darkness and his minions. This man later founded the Southern Empire. The darkness in the north and the light in the south fought each other day and night, maintaining the balance of the world. All he needs to do is ascend to the throne and tip the scales in their favor. If necessary, he can get rid of anyone who dares to interfere with him. I have to spare no one. Yusinil and her parents were driven out of the capital because of him. She wrote him a letter saying that their family had been forced to leave the capital in a hurry, and she had heard that he had become very ill right after his birthday, so she asked him to take care of himself. She didn't understand why they had to leave, but she thinks it had something to do with him, but he himself had nothing to do with it. This was not what Tess wanted, so he started crying for his friend. He felt very sorry, and the deity said that he had to become stronger to get what he wanted, and if they merge into one, he will give him as much power as he wishes. Tess said that if he had only known that he would have to wait so long to meet her, he would never have made the deal. Yusinil asked him again what he said, because she hadn't heard him, because the music was too loud. The gentleman said that nothing like that happened, and added that he simply missed her very much. He missed his precious Yusinil like crazy. The girl asked him to stop, because it's too close. There are too many people around, but they are so fascinated by the falling petals that they don't care about them. Yusinil said that he forgot about her parents because her mother put up a magical barrier. Tess said he hadn't thought of them. The girl asked him to move away a little in that case. Incidentally, he never gave her a direct answer to her question about what exactly he meant when he said that he gave her his heart. It was as if those words remained a mystery, while Yusinil could not understand what lay behind them. Tess replied that he meant exactly what he said, but his words did not reassure Yusinil, as she still did not understand what was behind this revelation. And if he had come such a long way to get to Valen, then she completely did not understand why he had not decided to give her his heart personally, leaving no doubt. Yusinil noticed that he kept repeating how much he missed her, but his words were at odds with his actions. Tess, it seemed to her, was only really avoiding her getting hurt. During her absence, there had been several attempts to kill Tess, and now Yusinil decided that she needed to clarify what he was talking about and what had happened during all this time. Tess explained that she had probably already heard that he had been framed when his appearance changed dramatically, which had led to several unsuccessful attempts on his life. From the moment his younger brother was born, many began to wish for his death, as no one wanted him to inherit the throne. The opposition within the court became more and more obvious. He remembered a near-death experience when he was years old. His mother had conspired with the Duke, the head of an aristocratic confederation, to send thugs after him. Eusennial was shocked to learn that Tess had miraculously survived. His experiences had been so intense that he now feared for his life and felt he needed to become stronger to protect not only himself, but those he cared about. Therefore, he firmly decided to become stronger, delved deeper into the study of magic, began to train more, and even began to seriously engage in politics, realizing that, in order to protect, one must be prepared for anything. Unfortunately, however, shortly after this, his father became seriously ill and died shortly after. This forced Tess to take on the responsibility and take his place. The nobles continued to plot until Tess's coronation, spreading vile rumors about his family and opposing their return to the capital. If Tess had not exposed these traitors, his life would have been in grave danger. If he failed, his family would never be able to return home. Tess realized that only strong leadership could ensure his family's safety and future. Now, Eusennial began to understand why he had executed all the conspirators and abolished the aristocratic confederation. It was necessary to eliminate the threat. Tess added that the conspirators were not just trying to destroy his power, they were aiming for his death. It was a real coup, and he was ready to fight to the end. He apologized again for leaving Valen without saying a word. He explained that he simply didn't know what was best to do and didn't want to worry her. But he missed her so much that he decided to leave his heart to her, not hoping for a response, but fearing that she would hate him for it. Eusennial replied that it was not. Her curiosity was the driving force, and she only wanted to understand what was behind his changes. It was not driven by distrust or judgment. If the question hurt him, she promised not to ask again. However, Tess said that he would gladly answer all her questions if only she wanted. Suddenly, a voice from a deity came from behind him, claiming that there was no truth in Tess's words, and that he was a liar. This caught Eusennial's attention. The deity declared that Tess, despite all his worries, was actually deceiving her. He had become much stronger and was no longer the vulnerable man who once needed saving. It was all due to the intervention of a deity that helped him achieve incredible power. Eusennial couldn't understand why Tess suddenly froze, as if something had changed in his mood. Tess apologized for his words, and the deity continued mockingly, claiming that here she was, his precious Eusennial, right in front of him, and she was too good for him to lose. The deity continued to say that if Tess continued to do her thing, he would lose her again, just as he had lost her once. Eusennial, noticing that Tess had turned pale, asked worriedly if he was okay. He looked clearly out of sorts, which made her worry about his condition. The voice of the deity continued to tell Tess that she had to hurry and get her before it was too late. This only increased Eusennial's anxiety. Tess shouted that he had had enough, and Eusennial, frightened, said that he had frightened her. He suddenly broke into a shout, not understanding why he was behaving this way. He apologized and said his head hurt, but the musicians, not understanding what was happening, decided that he needed to stop playing, believing that this was his request. The lady noticed that Tess looked unwell and suggested taking his temperature to see if there was cause for concern. Eusennial felt that he had a fever and asked if he was sure he was okay. He looked tired and weak, as if he lacked strength. The voice kept repeating that Tess should take her and possess her, which made Eusennial even more worried. Eusennial continued to say that Tess was acting strangely, but he reassured her that he was fine. However, his condition increasingly resembled extreme exhaustion. Tess reported that his headache was not going away and decided it was best to leave before his condition worsened further. Eusennial tried to stop him, but he had already turned and walked away, leaving her completely bewildered. He looked like he wasn't himself. Her father came up worried and asked what was wrong, because he had heard her scream. Eusennial explained that Tess had become ill, and she did not know what was happening to him. She admitted that she had noticed strange behavior in him before, and now that he was gone, her anxiety only increased. She couldn't understand what was going on. Eusennial tried to understand what was wrong with him, while Tess continued to struggle with a serious condition. She was tormented by the thought that something serious was wrong with him. After the New Year's ball, the bustle finally died down, and the long-awaited moment of peace arrived. But in her soul, there remained many questions that had no answers. Gail, noticing the change in her mood, asked her sister to look at the beautiful mimlock tree to distract her from her thoughts, at least a little. Picking fruit was much more fun than she thought. It was just a shame that Valen didn't have such fruitful trees as here. Yuseniel enjoyed every moment remembering her home. The fruits were not only beautiful, but also incredibly tasty. Yuseniel warned her not to eat too much. Otherwise, she would risk ruining her appetite and not having time to enjoy the main course. Once upon a time, this tree was so small that even a cat could barely reach its branches. Now it had already produced a whole crop, and they happily collected the fruits, watching everything grow around them. Time flew by. Gail noticed that she worked too much and didn't notice how quickly the days passed. It seemed that this was why she stopped finding time for simple pleasures. The New Year's ball was long gone, but Yuseniel still had worries. Every day they became more and more. Even the time to play with her sister almost disappeared, which upset both of them. But recently, Gail had started coming home earlier. The research in the lab was progressing well, and there was no longer a need to stay late into the night, which of course pleased Yuseniel. Gail said that she would soon be entering Conceum, and this meant that they would now be able to see each other much more often. This was encouraging, because her sister had been looking forward to the time when they would be together. Yuseniel thought that the academy and the laboratory were quite far apart, and she wasn't sure how often they would be able to cross paths. But she didn't want to upset her sister, and decided to remain silent. Gail was so glad that she wouldn't have to stay in the house alone anymore. It was a relief to Yuseniel. She finally felt like her life would be a little less lonely. The girl was looking forward to the start of the school year, when life would sparkle with new colors again. It was something important for her, and she was ready for new challenges because changes are always exciting. Gail said she wanted to take a basket of fruit to her mom and dad. This decision surprised her greatly, because lately she had not shown much interest in household chores, focusing all her attention on herself. Gail had always been bright and cheerful, but her words now worried Yuseniel. Somehow, everything seemed wrong, because lately, Gail often found herself alone, and this was clearly not the norm. Yes, Gail often sat alone with her parents because they were too concerned about Yuseniel. All the attention was focused on her, and Gail seemed forgotten. Maybe it was worth talking to them? Yuseniel felt that it was time to bring this to her parents' attention because Gail was beginning her adolescence. She could become more independent, but her overprotectiveness was a big hindrance. Yuseniel had a strange feeling, as if she had just been born yesterday, and now her sister was already entering the academy. It was incredible how quickly time flies and what could happen in such a short time. She felt full, as if she hadn't had time to realize what had happened, and now new mimlocks had grown on this tree. It was a reminder of how quickly life passes, even when you don't notice. Time moved, and Yuseniel couldn't help but notice how everything around her was changing. It was as if she was standing in one place, and the world around her continued to move endlessly as if she couldn't follow it. Another year passed, but the questions were no less important. Yuseniel wondered how much time had passed in her world, and how her mom and dad were feeling with her so far away from them. She kept thinking about her future, about the nightmares that tormented her, and the questions that remained unanswered. Would she be able to return home, or would this thought forever remain just a dream? And then she realized that she was losing her temper again. Her thoughts had wandered off, and she decided that she needed to switch to something more important and tangible, so as not to lose control of herself. Yuseniel remembered that she wanted to treat Tess to some of their fruits, and at the same time to visit him, because she hadn't heard from him for months. Tess, meanwhile, was lying there feeling very ill and in pain. He simply begged her to come quickly. The Duke informed His Majesty that suspicious activity had been noticed near the southern borders. He heard that the neighboring empire was amassing troops there, and so they should start preparing for an emergency. Suddenly, a man from behind turned to the Duke of Hardland and asked if it had occurred to him, when he was compiling this report, that it would be a good idea to include some solid evidence to go along with such a serious statement. It was Duke Rantia, Duke Ritzel believed that his lordship was not afraid of possible consequences, because his daughter was honored to dance with the emperor. Duke Bonaparte was simply horrified and did not understand what they were allowing themselves to do. Mylene said that everything was fine. Rantia turned to Bonaparte and noted that he was always trying to start a fight with someone, and perhaps it would be better for him to mind his own business. Although Duke Rantia and Duke Ritzel are of the same social status, they hate their family because they support the emperor. They are said to have been the ones who fought harder than anyone else for their expulsion. 14 years ago, they went quiet for a while, but then bared their fangs again after the ill-fated New Year's ball. The emperor ordered everyone to remain silent, then turned to the ducal hardland and asked how often the knights of the Southern Empire hung around their borders. Lately they have been seen there more and more often, but it cannot be said that this happens with enviable regularity. Bonaparte thought that they might be hunting demons. This is unlikely, since we are talking about an army that reports directly to the emperor. And this is also true. The personal squad of the ruler of the state has completely different tasks. This army has only one purpose. It exists to maintain peace on the continent. They conduct training on their boundaries to keep him on a short leash. The emperor thought it was stupid. The deity asked if he was just going to sit back and wait for them to attack. The emperor considered that he should destroy them all since he had more than enough power for this. This thought did not give him peace, but he restrained himself. Although the threat of war with the Southern Empire is minimal, there is another problem. The borderlands are swarming with demons. Constantly being on guard has become a routine for him. Over the last 10 years, the demons had become much more brutal than before. The emperor took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility that lay on his shoulders. The duke's gaze, reminding him of Euseenial, awakened painful memories in him. However, Tespelin knew that he had no right to lose control of himself. If he gave in to his bloodlust, the devil would be able to take over his mind and soul. He couldn't allow that, especially now that Euseenial had returned. With her return to the capital, the risk of losing control was unacceptable. The emperor knew that her safety depended on his ability to keep his cool. Tespelin sighed, and looking at the assembled group, said, "This damn meeting has been going on forever." He could hardly contain his irritation. Turning to Albert, the emperor asked how things were going with Euseenial. For some reason, this information always worried him more than anything else. Albert reported that the lady regularly practiced with the sword and sparred with Lord Ethel every week. This news immediately caused a flash of anger in Tessa. However, he ordered Albert to continue. The latter added that Lady Euseenial had recently been invited to a party at the Rantia estate, which would take place in 10 days. Albert noted that the lady did not have a companion yet, but most likely she would go to the event with Lord Nuss, or with Lord Ethel, whom Tess hated. Tess had hated Ethel since childhood. The tall, dark-haired man, the talented swordsman, and the potential rival for Euseenial's affections. All of this drove him crazy. Recalling the past, the emperor thought about how he had put in a good word for Etil with his father, so that he would accept him into the guard. Even the intercepted letters that Ethel sent to Euseenial during her exile could not break his connection with the girl. The kind-hearted Euseenial, unable to refuse these suitors, became the target of their advances. The emperor knew he had to intervene. He thought irritably that it was his job to rid her of her annoying suitors. Apparently, the situation would not change without his participation. Albert soon reported that Euseenial had requested an audience and was planning to visit the emperor that afternoon. Tess asked why it had become known so late. It turned out that the letter had arrived yesterday, but his condition had not allowed him to read it in time. Yesterday, he gave orders that no one was to disturb him unless they wanted to lose their heads. Emotions got the better of him, and he lost control of his power. Now, having heard the news of her visit, he ordered everything to be prepared for her arrival, wanting to make the proper impression on her. Albert assured that everything would be done. But as he was about to leave, he was stopped by Tess, who suddenly wanted to clarify the details. The emperor asked him what he looked like, and Albert, not understanding what his master meant, embarrassedly asked for forgiveness. It turned out that Tess planned to appear before Euseenial as a sick and weak person, in order to understand her true feelings. Euseenial, who had deliberately arrived at an inconspicuous time, brought the emperor a basket of fruit so as not to attract anyone's attention. She was surprised that half the palace greeted her as if it were an important visit, and even more confused by the number of servants on the way to her destination. When she was offered to accompany her, Eusenio, knowing the way to his office, refused the services of servants, considering it unnecessary. However, Albert reported that the emperor was not in the office as he was resting in his chambers due to illness. Eusenio was worried when she heard about his condition. Albert, noticing her anxiety, hastened to assure her that nothing serious had happened. Eusenio asked to accept her apology. She always worries when someone is sick. Now Albert understood why the emperor decided to pretend to be sick. The Lord said that he would bring her to him immediately. Eusenio noticed that he had turned pale, so she thought that he was very ill. It seemed that His Majesty had fallen asleep. He asked the lady to wait a little, now he would leave them. The lady did not understand why he was sweating so much. If Albert's memory serves him right, it was this girl's name that His Majesty repeated in his delirium. He thought that she would have a hard time with him. Eusenio tried to wake Tess, after which the emperor grabbed her and dragged her to him. Eusenio did not understand what it was. Tess said he was ticklish. The girl had no idea what he was doing. Eusenio was only 6 years old when she first met Tess. While she was much older at heart, he was still just a boy. And so no matter what he did, she continued to see him as a child. But now, looking at his damp hair and clearly defined muscles, she understands that he is no longer a child. She needed to get off him before he woke up. Eusenio asked him to stop, and didn't understand why he was pulling her down. Eusenio was confused because everything was like before. He was driving her crazy, but she still took him. Eusenio asked him not to press against her. His wet hair touches her bare skin. This is a very unusual feeling. Eusenio tried to pull herself together and drive these thoughts away. It was time for her to get out of here, but in her sleep, the emperor asked her not to leave. Eusenio was glad that he had finally deigned to wake up, so she asked him to let her go, but he also lay down on top of her. Eusenio asked him to stop and remarked that she felt like something like this had happened before. The girl decided that she would definitely blame him as soon as she opened her eyes. By the way, she didn't notice that he was so strong. The girl couldn't help but move him a millimeter. It's even a little scary, by the way. His hands have also changed a lot. When she returned to the capital, even the air between them became somehow different. For a long time, the image of little Tessa categorically did not want to disappear from her head. But now he was a grown man. She suddenly realized that she had never had a boyfriend. What can I say? She was so shy that she didn't even discuss other people's relationships with anyone. Eusenio thought that such close physical contact would make her feel uncomfortable, but she found that feeling the beating of something's heart was quite pleasant. It's calming, you can fall asleep like that. But she should never do that. If she spends the night here, her peaceful life will come to an end. Everyone will write that she spent the night in the imperial bedchamber. This confirms the rumors that she has been in a romantic relationship with His Majesty since her youth. The parents will be in despair. The father will faint, and the mother will give her such a bad time. Therefore, she should not give in to a momentary impulse. She asked him to get up because she couldn't just throw him off the bed. After all, it was indecent. In front of her, or with her, she thought about what to do to follow her desires and stay in the palace, or to push the impudent man off her and go home. The gentleman, as if by chance, remarked that he would prefer the first option because he was unbearably bored without her. He said this with a slight smile, calling her hard-hearted. Then, as if to confirm his words, he tenderly kissed her hand. The gesture was both touching and insistent, making her feel a little embarrassed. Eusenio tried to maintain her composure, but her irritation still broke through. She asked what in her actions he considered cruel since she tolerated his antics. The emperor, with feigned surprise, reminded her that he was after all the ruler of the empire, and added that her tolerance towards him might even be too much. Eusenio sighed and retorted that he should be grateful that he was still alive after his bear hug, because even after that, he continued to be indignant. Tess only smirked at this and asked how she would rate his hugs. The question was said with such mockery that Eusenio felt a little irritated. Not wanting to continue this conversation, the girl threw a blanket over him, ordering him to button up. But Tess considered her words as impolite because he was trying for her sake. He pursed his lips and noted with resentment that her coldness could have hurt if not for his iron patience. However, the girl did not pay attention to this. Eusenio sternly asked him to stop walking around half-dressed, as he might catch a cold. But Tess realized that his plan had worked as it should. He, noticing the blush on her face, wondered how she would react if he admitted that he dreamed of leaving a mark on her delicate neck. He had to remind himself to be patient. He believed that one day she would open her heart to him, and he would be able to take complete possession of her soul. Then he thought she would belong only to him. But now his attention was riveted on the mimlocks that the girl had brought with her. Eusenio confirmed that the fruit was meant for him. Tess smiled and noted that he had momentarily doubted her intentions. He thought she was so cold and distant, but yet she was the one who always came to him when he needed support. Eusenio, in turn, assumed that his behavior was due to resentment towards her. But Tess could not understand where she got such thoughts from. The girl just smiled and noted that as a child, he often threw tantrums if something didn't go his way, and now he behaves almost the same way. To end the conversation, she suddenly handed him a fruit and with a sharp movement put it into his mouth, causing the emperor to literally be taken aback. Tess, slightly stunned, did not immediately realize that this was the fruit of her own garden. His surprise turned to mild joy. Eusenio explained that the tree had borne fruit for the first time this year, and she wanted to share the joy with him. Her words sounded unexpectedly sincere. The emperor, approaching, asked whether she had really thought of him when she decided to treat him. The question sounded with a slight hint of distrust. Eusenio reminded him that it was he who had asked Sir Gard to care for the tree, and she simply thought it right to share the harvest. However, Tess noticed that her behavior had become surprisingly changeable. She would sometimes push him away, sometimes give him such sweet moments as this. And although she avoids getting closer, he feels that there is an invisible connection between them that does not allow her to leave. He tried to get closer, but each time Eusenio seemed to slip away, leaving him with the feeling that she would forever remain a mystery. Despite her coldness, Tess felt that every moment spent with her made him become more and more attached to this girl, but she remained out of his reach, like sand slipping through his fingers. He felt himself falling into her power, and it was unusual. When Eusenio sharply asked why he was staring like that, the emperor only chuckled, realizing that she didn't even suspect his feelings. He feigned ease when he asked her to feed him, but Eusenio frowned and said he was perfectly capable of doing it himself. Tess then offered to pick him up in her arms, as if mockingly, and his serious tone made her freeze in surprise. She didn't understand how he could say such things with such sincerity, and in response, she barely held back an irritated laugh. The emperor confessed that he felt lonely. While she was enjoying the balls, he spent his days here, in this room, in isolation and melancholy. It hurt him that she seemed to forget about him, and he admitted that, for this moment, he was ready to endure any pain. Eusenio couldn't understand what was making him so clingy, but she gave in and allowed him to stay by her side. Tess, comfortably settled on her lap, noted with a satisfied smile that he was now happy, because next to her he felt better. The girl, looking at him reproachfully, remarked that it was strange to see the emperor sitting on the floor. This spectacle seemed to violate all propriety. But Tess calmly explained that she refused to share the bed, and the difference in their heights made his position even more uncomfortable. As if by chance, he again suggested moving to the bed, but Eusenio categorically rejected this idea, almost blushing with embarrassment. The emperor, looking into her eyes, suddenly asked how long she intended to pretend not to notice anything. The girl frowned, not understanding what was being discussed, and Tess, with a slight smile, told her mysteriously that if she wanted, he would kneel before her. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but the words took Eusenio's breath away. She knew there was more behind the gesture. Tess added that it was enough for him to just be near her, and as long as she didn't drive him away, he felt absolutely happy. He admitted that these rare moments when they were alone made his world brighter, even if she considered it just a momentary weakness. Eusenio reminded him that she only agreed to this because he was sick, and asked him not to jump to conclusions. Tess nodded, but his eyes said something else. This wasn't just a moment for him. He was sure their connection was deeper than that. The girl knew that her position did not bode well, but every time she looked at him, she felt something new being born inside her. She convinced herself that it was just a temporary phenomenon, but every day she noticed that the thought about it was becoming more and more obsessive. Eusenio was afraid that if she gave in to these feelings, She would become captive to their power and would never be able to escape this turbulent cycle. She was determined to keep her composure while her research progressed, and her dreams of returning became a reality. Recurring nightmares of her death reminded her that she was only a guest in this world, a guest who would one day have to leave so as not to upset its balance. Waking up once again from a disturbing dream, she was strengthened in her resolve to stay away from strong attachments. She couldn't allow her disappearance to cause anyone pain, and Euseniel herself understood that then her departure would become unbearable. Her resolve to remain calm and detached could not be shaken even by Tess's presence, although sometimes she doubted whether she was strong enough. Having said goodbye to the Emperor, she wished him good night and left his chambers, trying not to turn around. The next day, Euseniel encountered an unexpected scene. She heard loud voices coming from around the corner and rushed to investigate. Before her stood the Marquis's daughter, Lily, and Gale Hardland, who were clearly in the midst of a heated argument. Lily, flushed with anger, shouted that Gale should sit in her corner and keep her head down as if she had no right to attention. Gale tried to justify herself, but Lily wouldn't let her get a word in, edgewise, insisting that her existence was only an inconvenience to those around her. Euseniel frowned, came closer, and in a cold tone demanded to know what was going on here. Today, Euseniel finally found a moment to open the letter from Nurse that she had received a long time ago. It had been lying among other things for a long time, and she had almost forgotten about it. The bustle and endless worries of the last few days had completely filled her life, pushing personal matters into the background. However, after reading the first lines, she felt a strange uneasiness. Why did this letter arrive at a time when there was a catastrophic lack of time? Why now? Perhaps it would be a good idea to call Ethel for help, but Euseniel immediately doubted that decision. Ethel was so busy that he even canceled his last training, something he had never done before. He had said it was urgent. He had been summoned to the palace, and refusal was impossible. But Euseniel sensed that there was more to his words. He was clearly nervous, and she could see it. If they were to try to involve him in solving the problem, Ethel would most likely ask Oren for help. This would be a logical step, but something about it also seemed wrong. Euseniel noticed a strange coincidence. Nus was suddenly sent on a business trip, and Atil was loaded with work up to his ears, as if someone had deliberately isolated her from them. She briefly considered that Tess might be behind this, but she quickly dismissed the thought. He wasn't the kind of man to abuse his power out of jealousy. Or could he? After their dance at the New Year's ball, Euseniel became the object of close attention from the aristocracy. Now her every move was discussed, and inviting someone to the evening became a real dilemma. She thought irritably, why should she even bother? Perhaps she was simply exaggerating the situation, giving it too much importance. But after her last meeting with Tess, she promised herself to keep her distance from any emotional upheaval. She had to be cool and independent. After all, she could go to the party alone. Her family's reputation was strong enough not to be damaged by such a minor infraction. Moreover, it seemed to her more and more often that it would be better to stay away from these evenings' intrigues and gossip. All this only got in the way. Her decision to distance herself from the high society began to bear fruit. She felt calmer and freer. At some point, however, Euseniel noticed that isolation had taken her too far. She began to be bothered by questions that she had previously ignored. When she decided to discuss them with the professor, those around her were surprised. The lady now spent almost all her time in the laboratory, which was unusual for her position. Some even began to whisper that her passion for research bordered on obsession. This did not escape her attention, but she pretended not to care. And indeed, it seemed that nothing but work on the project interested her anymore. Even communication with loved ones became a rarity for her. She had finally decided that she would not become attached to anyone. This was her firm decision, and she was sure that nothing would make her change her mind. But the moment her frightened sister appeared before her, Euseniel suddenly felt how her own indifference became hateful to her. She turned sternly to Gale, demanding to know what had happened. Her silence and confusion looked suspicious, and Euseniel wanted to know the truth. The girl, with a gentle smile, assured that she was simply giving her sister some advice, adding that these were the usual instructions from an older student. Then she looked at those around her, as if seeking their support, and with feigned naivety asked whether she was really to blame for this situation. Gail, to everyone's surprise, admitted her guilt. She lowered her head and stated with restraint that it was she who started this conflict. Eusennial was shocked. She suggested that her sister return home, assuring her that everything was fine and that she had nothing to worry about. But a voice inside her whispered that Gail was scared. This was clearly beyond the scope of a normal conflict, and Eusennial could sense it. A thought flashed through her mind. Her sister was stepping on the same rake again. Why was she so stubbornly ignoring her past mistakes? She reminded herself that she had promised not to interfere, but the words she heard struck a chord. She couldn't remain silent this time. After Gail left, Eusennial thought about it. She had promised herself not to interfere, but she knew she would never forgive herself if something happened. She walked her sister to the stagecoach, assuring her that everything would be fine. But her smile disappeared as soon as Gail left. Her face became serious. She remembered how Lily had repeatedly crossed the line, and she decided that she would not tolerate it. Lily tried to defend herself, claiming that she was just giving some advice. But Eusennial silently slapped her across the face, stopping the flow of excuses. This caused a storm of indignation. Lily called her an impudent girl and was furious that someone dared to raise a hand to her. Eusennial looked at her coldly, replying that next time she should choose her words more carefully, otherwise the consequences would be worse. She reminded that if it were not for her intercession, Lily would have been in prison long ago. She was saved only by asking for clemency from the emperor. Lily was stunned. She couldn't believe that anyone would dare remind her of this, but Eusennial was adamant. After that, she turned around and walked away, leaving Lily with her thoughts and indignation, as if finally putting an end to their argument. She reminded him that if it weren't for her intervention, Lily would have rotted in prison long ago, and all thanks to the mercy that she herself asked the emperor for. Lily, furious, couldn't believe that someone dared to remind her of this moment, but Eusennial remained unperturbed and left. The earrings were shocked that Lady helped free Lily. The girl stood up and he shouted and asked what she was carrying. Eusennial told her to watch her tongue, for she was beside herself with anger. The Marquise's daughter did not understand why she cared for her. She was Lady Suin. It seems that Eusennial has already made it clear that she will not tolerate this girl's vile yapping just because she is Aurine's sister. She clearly has no intention of turning a blind eye to such behavior. Although the elf by nature does not strive to show his full strength for her, Eusennial is ready to make an exception. This situation clearly requires a different approach. She hopes that this girl understands that Eusennial is leading her to some understanding of what is happening. She does not want to let her go so easily. She turns to the other girls standing nearby and asks for their names. The girls standing nearby did not know what to do in this situation and began to ask Lily how they should respond in this situation, what they should expect from what was happening. Despite their confusion, the girls introduced themselves. However, the lady, having learned their names, asked them not to tell the whole truth about how exactly everything happened. Today, when the seniors were greeting the new students, Lady Ganyel came first to greet Lily. It was quite unexpected, and Lily was a little taken aback. Eusennial wondered if this was really a real problem. She couldn't understand how serious a conflict could be over such a trivial matter. She asked if the girls wanted to say that the Marquis's daughter had almost torn the Duke's daughter to pieces just because of some pathetic greeting, which sounded absolutely ridiculous. Eusennial noticed that this situation seemed hopeless and grabbed the girl by her clothes. She was ready to act decisively as the situation was clearly getting out of control. The Marquise's daughter cried out, demanding that Eusennial take her hands off because she would complain to her father. She was sure that he would not let this incident go unnoticed. She reminded that the future empress of this country stood before her, and she would not allow herself to be treated like this, demanding respect and recognition. The lady forgot about raising her daughter for a moment as her father surrounded her with love and care, hoping that she would become a future empress and the main pride of their family. Perhaps it was for this reason that her father, in desperation, begged her to get his daughter out of such an unpleasant situation. Lily quietly asked if it was true, unable to believe it. The lady, noticing the doubt in her voice, added that her dear daddy literally crawled to her on his knees, ready to kiss her feet, so that she would not punish his daughter. So to this day, she is alive and well solely because she managed to convince the emperor not to execute her, despite all her mistakes. Lily indignantly declared that this was all a lie, to which the lady replied that she was irritated not only by Lily's behavior, but also by her unfounded confidence that the emperor would someday marry her. She reminded Lily that the man she was clinging to so desperately had been hers long before Lily had even been born, so her attempts had been in vain. Lily couldn't understand how she could even say that without realizing the gravity of the situation. Yuseniel coldly stated that her life still depended on her. In other words, she could either beg Yuseniel for forgiveness or say goodbye to her chance to keep her life and well-being. The choice was hers alone. After these words, the lady silently left the room, leaving Lily to think about what she would have to do next. Everything was being decided too quickly, and she did not have time to think. Gail was very worried, not knowing where her sister was and why she had not appeared for so long. She did not understand what could have happened and was ready to panic, not knowing what to do. Gail didn't want to think about the fact that something terrible could have happened and was very worried, afraid that these girls could cause her sister pain or suffering. One of the servants asked to calm the lady down, but she could not understand what would happen if her sister really suffered because of these women. It was unbearable for her. Gail was afraid that her parents would be very upset if something happened to Yuseniel. Her anxiety increased because she did not know how it would all end. But suddenly, unexpectedly, her sister came up to her from behind and asked who would suffer, as if not understanding the whole situation and her experiences. Gail threw herself into her sister's arms, asking where she had been for so long, because she was so worried and could not understand why her sister had not appeared earlier. Yuseniel thought she was silly and didn't understand why she was so worried, because nothing terrible had happened, and it could have been lived through calmly. Gail asked Yuseniel not to call her that, to which the lady apologized with a smile, promising not to use such words towards her anymore. She suggested Gail not to worry and go home with the servants. She would be safe and no one would harm her, so there was no need to worry. The little girl was upset because she didn't want to stay alone at the academy all night. She hoped that everything would be different. Yuseniel, noticing her sadness, said that she did not understand why it upset her so much, because the academy was a place where she could learn a lot. She recalled how Gail herself said that the capital was so beautiful and interesting, but now it seemed that she felt like an outsider and out of place here. She also recalled Gail saying that her parents were always busy and rarely home, and how she missed spending time with her sister. Their elven mother often doesn't understand human customs, and their father is always busy at work and returns home well after midnight, so Gail feels lonely. Because of this, Gail could only rely on her older sister, who was the only person she could rely on. Yuseniel reassured her, promising that she would visit home more often to spend more time with her sister and support her in difficult times. She promised that they would spend much more time together, and that would now become her priority despite all her other concerns. Yuseniel knew that someday she would have to leave this place, but for now her main goal was to ensure the safety and peace of her sister. She told Gail to go home and wait for her there. Yuseniel had to meet with some people urgently to sort out some important matters. The emperor was delighted to see Yuseniel, and it was a pleasant surprise for him, since he had not expected her visit at that moment. She finally came when he had just finished his business, and now they could talk about important matters. It was a good coincidence. He invited her into the drawing room, or perhaps into the library. The lady welcomed him, and in spite of the formalities, Tess said several times that they could dispense with them. She had come a long way and was ready to discuss important points concerning her plans and future. This was necessary for further action. Yuseniel said that she wanted to ask him for a favor and hoped that the emperor would help her in solving an important issue. She explained that there was an important dinner party at the Rantia estate this weekend, and she wanted the emperor to be her companion at the event. To strengthen Gail's position in society, she asked him to help her just once by supporting her at this important event. The fact that Lillian was the only one to mock Genielle left her confused. The youngest daughter of the Marquis firmly believes that she will one day become the Empress, so she can understand her impudence. But how her friends from the families of minor landed gentry dare to bully the young Duchess is completely incomprehensible. After some thought, she found the answer to this question. Children develop their own hierarchy. I know this very well. Parents arrange something like a tea party for them, or take them with them to various social events. In this way, they help him strengthen his status, get comfortable among his peers, and even make friends with them. This has long been a kind of tradition. However, since their family was in exile for a long time, they were unable to observe it, so she asked him to be her companion. She would need the emperor's help to make up for lost time in the shortest possible time. They seemed to be listening intently to their conversation, and she thought they would let them be alone. But that wouldn't do. They definitely wouldn't be allowed to talk here, so she dragged the emperor along with her. Yusiniel suggested that he look for a more secluded place. Tess was simply shocked. He remembered when she was little and noticed that she hadn't changed at all. They found a place where no one would find them. Yusiniel couldn't believe that she had sunk so low, suddenly jumped up, and ran around the palace as if scalded. And she doesn't understand at all what she was thinking about then. She also apologized for not even letting the emperor open his mouth. She also grabbed him by the hand, just like in childhood. He should let go before he thought of something unnecessary. Yuseniel, I wanted others to eavesdrop because it was about her sister. That was why she brought him here, and that was the only reason. Tess said he knew, so she decided to go back to where she started. But first, she asks him to just move away from her. Tess noted that she said that she wanted to use him, but he was not at all against it, and was even glad. Yuseniel noticed that he didn't even really understand what she asked for. Tess asked her to just say it again. The lady didn't quite understand what he meant. He wanted her to ask him to be her companion again. The lady was very embarrassed, and he asked her not to worry, because he always listened to her attentively. After that, he kissed her on the forehead. She once said that he wasn't allowed to kiss her on the lips without permission, or that was just what she wanted. The girl got scared and asked him to move over. Tess noted that she probably wouldn't repeat it. Yuseniel asked him to be her companion and hoped that he was now satisfied. God did not say that he was completely satisfied, but the girl did not understand why she insisted on it so much. Tess noted that even if he explained, she still would not understand. But every time he hears it, it seems to him as if his dream has come true. But he must know if she really wants the emperor himself to accompany her to social events, because he thought she did not like being the center of attention. The Lord said that something happened, and then she told him everything that happened. Yuseniel was afraid that he would get angry and make some rash decision, but she was struck by his calmness. Tess noted that she seemed to care about her little sister very much, even more than he could have imagined. When she shared how angry she was about the incident, he quickly drew the right conclusions. Yuseniel is worried that her sister will not be accepted in high society, and so wants to show everyone that her older sister is close enough to the emperor to invite him to a dinner party as her date. Yuseniel noted that he really understood everything correctly, and she also asked him for forgiveness. She was very sorry that she had to do this to him, but Tess said that she didn't need to apologize, because that was why he was glad to inherit the throne. She knows that he is ready to fall on his knees before her if she wishes it. Tess prays that she can use it as much as her heart desires. He will do everything for her. He is just waiting for an order from her. Yuseniel noticed that in this light, the eyes looked darker than the night sky. They are so deep that you can easily drown in them. Just one fleeting glance of his impossible eyes seems like an ardent declaration of love. Tess asked her to kiss him. He was too good a boy and deserved a reward. For some reason, because of him, she immediately loses the ability to think clearly. If you think about it, she has never dated anyone before, and in her past life, her father abandoned her sick mother and went to live with his mistress. And she had to take care of her alone, so there was no time for her own relationship, and then she was killed. It's not surprising that she developed massive trust issues, but thanks to her current parents, she realized that true love exists. However, she was sure that she was not given the opportunity to experience these feelings. Therefore, she does not understand why all these arguments. She was completely unaccustomed to such situations, because then she kissed him. She asked him to wait, but the emperor continued to kiss her. Yuseniel knows that she herself reached out for a kiss, but what she should do now is completely unclear. Yuseniel decided that this couldn't go on any longer. She had to push him away quickly. Yuseniel asked him to wait, but the emperor began to say that he liked her very much. So there is no strength to restrain oneself, but there is no need to worry, he will not continue without her consent. This is a curse, she must stop it, and put a stop to this chaos immediately. He understands perfectly well what this is fraught with, but Tess still asked if she really didn't like the kiss, because he likes it so much. When she looks into his eyes, it becomes so hot that her throat burns and thoughts literally evaporate. Even so, she still has to order him to stop, but her body is on fire and is moving towards him against her will. Eugenial agreed to just one time. In the evening, the main character came home and told her mother that she had reported a mistake. Seal reacted weakly, and the girl was surprised that this was all she would respond to, since she had no idea what exactly she had done. Mother thinks that everything is not so bad. Before this, she did very well, whatever she took on, so she believes in her daughter. Eugenial became convinced that her mother thought too highly of her, so she asked where her younger sister was. Gail is outside playing with the maids, she can call her, but she doesn't need to because the girl doesn't want her to hear this conversation. It's because of this that we're going to talk about. Her Eugenial became an accidental witness to how other students bully her, and he suspects that this has been going on since the day he was enrolled in the academy. The mother did not understand how this could happen. The girl asked her to listen to her calmly. After the story, the mother asked if everything she said was really true. Eugenial noted that there was no need to worry because it immediately intervened and settled everything. It's her fault she didn't give her daughter the attention she deserved. But the little girl always smiled and was in high spirits, and she could not imagine that someone was offending her. It is completely unclear why she did not tell her or her father about it. Eugenial noted that it was because she and her father were completely focused on Eugenial. She knows that they are very worried, but there is no need for that. Ciel was a little angry and did not understand how she could say that. Eugenial added that the more attention they give her, the less attention Gail gets. Perhaps she and her father were worried because she constantly blamed herself for their expulsion and spent almost her entire childhood in the home library. But she's already an adult, so there's no need to worry about her so much. Seal said that it wasn't just that the reason she was going crazy with worry was because of her nightmares. It is hidden in that very prophecy, but she cannot talk about it, so the lady fell silent. The girl asked what happened to her mother. Seal just said that everything was fine, and she was right, so she would try to pay more attention to her sister. She will also definitely tell her father about everything, and then they will think together about how to solve this problem. Eugenial was surprised, and then noted that, to be honest, she had already decided, but his mother would not like him. Eugenial said that overall she has everything under control, so there is nothing to worry about. CL, you understand. She is calm if that is the case. Eugenial thanked heavens that she did not want to know the details. Mother said that she would always pay more attention to her and worry about her more than about others. So she asks the girl to be more careful. Eugenial thought about how this was the first time her mother had so openly admitted that she was her favorite. And then she noticed that the door had not been opened before. After that unpleasant conversation with my mother, time flew by unnoticed, and the day of the ill-fated social event arrived. You will place the Duke. Tess said he turned her in because she was his precious Eugenial. The lady greeted them. Her younger sister was simply shocked because for the first time she saw a carriage decorated with the coat of arms of the imperial family and a knightly escort. Tess seemed to have prepared for this event with great care. He was very happy about it being Eugenial's official companion. The gentleman noted that he should note that they had not seen each other since that day. So he asked if she had done what he had asked her to do. Gail thought about it. She asked her sister, "What is he talking about?" The emperor began to say that he was with her little sister, but the lady began to cough quickly and loudly. Gail didn't understand what was wrong with her and whether she was okay. The emperor said that they were just discussing state affairs, and the girl immediately grasped everything. Eugenial was very confused and remarked that she thought Gail had forgotten something. The girl remembered and greeted. She was very glad to meet and introduced herself with her name. The emperor believed that she had probably rehearsed this greeting for a long time. And now the wife. What kind of a woman is she? Eugenial's younger sister? The girl thought that apparently the rumors were true, and she and her sister were really very close. Lord, the bicycle legs asked again. Gail admitted that the young ladies at the academy were talking about nothing else. Eugenial believed that it was probably Lily's doing. The girl also asked for forgiveness if she had made a mistake. The emperor noted that at least in something the girl had not lied. Tess said that everything was true and that she and her little sister were quite close. In connection with this, he prepared a small gift for her. This knight will be her escort tonight. The man bowed and said he would be honored to serve her. Gael was very happy and immediately started talking to him. Yuseniel was surprised that he even assigned a guard to her. She asked me if he thought it was too much, since they were not members of the imperial family. Tess thought it didn't matter, and if it did, she might as well enter it as a bride. Yuseniel began to deny it, and he noted that it was she who stole his innocence. After all, she herself agreed to it. But the lady asked him to keep quiet and covered his mouth. She was very embarrassed. Yuseniel told them that she had only kissed him, and he should call a spade, or people would misunderstand. Besides, they had agreed to forget about it. He promised her this. That's right, after that intoxicating kiss, they decided to pretend that nothing had happened. Yuseniel believed that her mind was clouded due to the stress she had experienced. She asked him to consider it payment for the service. Of course, not the only thing he would get, but her body moved on its own. Yuseniel understood that he would never let this phrase pass by listen, so she did not understand what she was thinking about then. She decided to screw it on, and her head was already spinning. If she started worrying about it, she would burst. The gentleman agreed. In return, he wants her to think about why she was attracted to him. She can take her time with the answer. After all, the emperor knows how to wait. Yuseniel repeated these words and asked if he remembered about it. But she is still grateful to him for his care. It has been a long time since she saw Gael so happy. Since she had obviously been out of sorts lately, she was afraid that she might have overheard her conversation with her mother. But perhaps she was imagining things too much. When they arrived, the girl was simply delighted because the Duke's estate was simply magnificent. Yuseniel asked her not to run away because she had told her this in the carriage. Gael noted that she said that, although she and the emperor had known each other since childhood and communicated freely, she should not forget her manners. Yuseniel asked where she was rushing to. Tess noted that she was being too forward with her sister. It was her first time out in public, and of course she was excited. Her personal guard will be following her around all evening, so there is nothing to worry about. So instead, she can pay a little more attention to him because he is her partner, after all. Gail agreed with him and said that everything would be fine with her. The lady said that she saw that they had gotten along. They hadn't even reached the point of annoyance, and she was already tired. Yuseniel was shocked that he even asked, because he had tired her out with his was in her all the way she listened to them. Gail said that her sister was the sweetest, smartest, kindest, and strongest girl in the world. He agreed with her and said that sometimes she may seem cold, but that gives her a special charms. Gail said that they decorated the entrance very beautifully. It was simply a sight to behold. The emperor noted that it still could not be compared with the magnificent decoration of the imperial palace. In the corridor, his knitted were decorated with diamond and gold statues. Tess said that if she wanted to see it, she could come to him, but she had to take her sister with her. Gail promised that she would pay him a visit tomorrow. Yuseniel did not agree to this. They were at odds. Gail wanted it so much that she started looking at her sister with a pitiful face, so she agreed. Yuseniel said that she would make time for the week, provided that today she would be polite to everyone and make friends with someone. Since this is not an official reception, I will not have any difficulties. And besides, His Majesty is with them. Gail asked if she thought Lady Lillian would come. Yuseniel said she doubted she would have the courage to show up with a swollen cheek. Most likely, she will remain alone at home. The girl asked why the emperor was laughing. Tess asked permission to give her advice. Do not cut the weeds, otherwise she will never get rid of them. They need to be pulled out by the roots before they scatter all over the garden. Yuseniel asked what he was getting at, since I had to get so close to her. She asked him to confess because she thought he was making something up. Tess noted that she would soon see for herself. Lily was at the reception after all. She introduced herself to the emperor. It was supposed to be a modest celebration, similar to those she had attended up until now. In other words, it was supposed to be an ordinary dinner party, arranged so that nobles could introduce their offspring into society. And to help them settle into high society, everyone immediately began to greet the Duchess and His Highness in her company. The lady thought that for sure all the guests were confused and feeling awkward. Tess said she was here today solely as Lady's partner, so they could all hold their heads up. Yuseniel thought that there would be a regular dinner here, and she doesn't understand why there are so many people here. Even the heads of noble families are present. It looks more like a royal reception. She believed that it was the emperor's doing, since she had asked not to shock the public. Tess said that was not the case at all. He only mentioned in passing that he was going to attend this social event. It was at a meeting, and then everyone heard that the emperor was going to go there with his partner. Tess said he was just thinking out loud, and they were happy to try. It wasn't his fault, but now he realized what he had done. Eusenio sighed and noted that it was good that he didn't announce it to everyone. The ladies approached Gail and introduced their daughter. The girl was very happy to meet them all. She was very happy to communicate with new friends, many of whom were older than her. Not only girls but also boys met her. That's why her older sister was very happy about it. Eusenio noted that it seemed like she had finally found friends and was feeling more comfortable. Everyone was being open and friendly, and she beamed with joy again. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, and that was such a relief. The emperor thought she was pleased. So he offered to play with him because he was really bored right now. The lady asked him to stop because someone might see it. Tess said she was taking her eyes off her little sister. This even made him feel a little offended. But the girl didn't understand what was happening. When she looked at him, she was simply horrified by how cute he was. She seems to have disappeared. Since that day she thinks only about him. Eusenio wanted me to think that she really fell in love with him. The gentleman asked what was wrong with her. She said that she was in a hurry to pay her respects. The Marquis came up from behind and greeted the gentleman and lady with his daughter next to him. Eusenio didn't understand what was happening and realized that the person in front of her was Marquise Wynne. She couldn't believe that she had almost confessed her feelings to the emperor. She must have completely lost her mind. Fortunately, Lillian's appearance brought her back down to earth. Temperature believed that this meant that this was the same young lady who imagined herself to be the future empress.